Our hero's hit his limit. Only he can handle these vital tasks as he reflects on his hard work. Starting today, he's changing his ways. His excuse for being late, he just overslept. Admitting failure, the hero breaks down in tears and vows to boycott every future meeting. X feels better after a long sleep and refuses to lead. The girl greets X, telling him to give it his all. She says the guildmaster wants a word and tells him to wait. Stunned, the hero can use basic magic. The guildmaster grills him for ditching the meeting without permission. Master thinks it's way too early for the hero to become an adventurer. He scans the hero's card, rank E-Magician, clumsy, 19, 160 centimeters, 45 kilograms, specialty extending spell duration. He's demoted to rank F as punishment, a brutal 3-level drop. A drop of blood on the card registers X. Master yells to bleed on the card and undo his work, asking why the hero is just standing there. X is fed up and finally makes his choice. Hero admits he's not cut out for adventuring and thanks the team for their help. Master doesn't get why X is leaving and screams at the hero. X has never seen the master look like this, but he doesn't care. Zombie boss, Oz is glad home. Shame hoing X is gone. Now the guild's entry bar finally goes up. He even recalls his old days with a bottom-tier magic user. She stops the hero, insisting he's not done yet. X reveals he already left the guild. He thinks he's the only one left who can cry, but after yesterday, he's completely tapped out. Pans mocks the hero's new ego, but X says they're clueless. Solo missions pay 50 more, but he's not in it for the money. She lists taxes from the Lord, Forest Guardian, and ex-guild master. Hero nods, asking her to read the details and reward aloud. She realizes these 3 tasks are a nightmare everyone's avoiding. Fix the Lord's maid's magic item, patrol the forest, and run the guild master's tavern for a month. She offers 7 small silver coins for the job. Pants must accept the offers even if he can't deliver. Axe calls it the price of lunch, but Pants finds the orders humiliating. The hero sees the reward as trash. He's an E ranker, but the payout doesn't match his level. X declares these 3 tasks his final mission. Once finished, he's quitting the adventurer life. Hero casts Ice Ball to repair the Lordess item, renewal complete. X finishes the job, estimating a month of light. He keeps going, enchanting every room with magic. X says the place is massive and packed, but he's exhausted from work. He preps materials for a portable wind ice orb, figuring out how to spin it with a tuned turbine. Job finished, he's satisfied until a strange sensation hits his chest. X's bad feeling is right. Viscount Radley demands 100 of these jars. The hero apologizes but rejects the offer. The Viscount mocks him as a defective mage, but the hero quits. 5 years of impossible demands have left him too exhausted to even sleep. The hero refuses to back down. Redley warns one bad explanation, and he'll execute the hero. The Viscount demands an apology, certain his threats will break the hero. X is done. He's quitting. Hero celebrates the win. X asks the worried Viscount if he's okay. The Viscount trashes the hero's basic magic and demands more profit than last time. Redley snaps. This should have been handled sooner. The hero suggests a replacement, but he's already retired. X confirms the Viscount's request is done and says he's already gone. Personal favors are exhausting the hero. His old Forest Guard allies stop visiting, having dumped their duties onto others. X has 5 years on the job, but the hero says stone hunting is getting harder as the extra work piles up. X blasts the Orc King with fire. The king found him, but X was faster. Hero says the Orc King thought those fireballs were harmless. He vows his fire one to die, flexing his unique eternal magic. The hero's getting stronger, but someone just interrupted him. A shadow wolf bites X. He's stunned. He let his guard down. Hero blasts the dark attacker back with a stun spell. The wolf bolts, but the hero realizes she landed a nasty bite. The wolf left him wounded. He didn't finish the fight, but he blasted the beast with lightning. Mana potions leave him starving. Today's report: 1 Orc King, 8 Shadow Wolves, 15 Orcs, and 2 Goblins slain, using 1 recovery potion and 7 mana potions. Monster numbers have tanked, so X scraps the admin role and thanks them for 5 years of service. Monster numbers are down, but sleeping in his own bed is the real win. X can finally relax. He spots the bite in his shredded pants. What now? X tries fixing his pants with a lucky needle, but it backfires and makes things way worse. Hero cuts his ruined pants and hunts for a new pair. ASAP. HP. The guildmaster gives X one final task: run the tavern for a month. He forces the hero to work before opening. The senile ex-guildmaster still thinks he's in charge. The hero spams fireball, ice ball, and water pillar just to keep the house clean. X is drained from all-day elemental magic, especially extension spells. The man grills him for being late, warning the target's gone and the commission is canceled. X agrees. The guildmaster laughs, warning him not to be late next month. The hero cheers, calling failure a win. X is relieved he doesn't have to restart, and the guildmaster orders him to report the hero's blunder. The heroes finish 3 assignments. She confirms the job as done. X thanks her for the help. The hero's chains shatter. Hero steps out, grinning mission complete. X hates adventuring, calling it straight-up slavery. X is free, starting his carefree life. Hero soaks in the morning sun. X has been plotting for years, and now he finally has the time and cash to strike. The kid's finally free. He's X, a wizard restricted to elemental magic. He reveals his insane powers, eternal fire and ice, that lasts a month. He claims his magic lasts longer. X is loaded from never shopping. Then a sweet scent catches his nose. He grins and points right at the skewers. For the first time ever, he's treating himself to a delicious meal, and he's loving it. Roderick notes the hero's limited to elemental magic, fuming over the rejection. The guy backs the Viscount, confirming he's right. Roderick asks for the simpleton's name, and Isman reveals it Axe. Viscount orders the man confined to his estate, and blacklisted Eisman handles it instantly. He can't wait to see this guy beg him for a job. The Viscount braces for a painful lesson in humility as his servant questions the strange device. Roderick spots the mage's ice wind tool, stunned by an effect he never expected from a novice. Eisman praises his choice, and the Viscount suggests the kitchen. He planned for 200, but the incompetent guy fled. The Viscount checks the kitchen while Eisman finds the water cut off. Since the same magician built everything, the whole system is dead. He suggests a cheaper wizard or grimoire. Eisman agrees. It's still better than Axe's best. The hero devours the meal, loving every delicious bite. He hasn't tasted anything this good in ages and is thrilled he finally quit his job. He wants more, but knows overeating will wreck his stomach. Years of hard work finally caught up. His body is failing. Axe is stuffed, and after just one bite, but his friend asks if he's still eating. Hero hands the eared boy shashlik. X hands the boy food and points. He eats slowly to avoid getting sick, thanking the hero for his first meat in 6 months. As an orphan, X knows meat is a luxury and promises to treat them next time they meet. He loves the work-free life, but wants more. He'll live his way, needing nothing but cash to blow on himself. The world is unrecognizable. Making his head spin, he's ready to blow his cash, but hasn't spent a dime yet. X is desperate for backup and a heal. He's handed a stress relief pillow, noted for its comfy shade. The hero beams with joy, clutching a soft pillow. He sinks into the soft pillow. Overjoyed, the hero takes her home, refusing to let go of his pillow. The girl asks if it's really him. She confirms it as him. X says he just checked the pillow. She says her daughter would be happy with an admirer. X claims he was just checking quality, but the hero says he dirtied it. Now they're forced to buy it back. She says it's a sample, so it's not for sale. The girl has a plan. X thanks him, but refuses. The girl calls him cute. The guild ignored her request, so she asks the hero to help clean a water barrel. Sick of insane demands, the hero is done taking requests. He sees her sarcasm has limits as she thanks him for listening. She says to send the guild application later. The hero confirms he's officially done adventuring and won't work another day. Back at the Viscount's, Eisman eyes the jug. Iceman spots the shattered jug and demands answers. He claims he just used magic as instructed. The A-class wizard repeats the process easily, claiming he meant to fix the barrel, not shatter it. He's stunned magic like this shouldn't even exist. Izamon's blown away by Axe's magic and admits he can't live without that jug. He offers another water barrel for a break. The hero agrees. Perfect plan. Lights out. The servant blames X, and now the butler's torment begins. The hero shuts it down. She asks for more with a smile, but X finds his nerve and says no. She offers a slime pillow as thanks instead of cash. But at 5 silver coins, the hero thinks it's a total ripoff. A tiny angel and demon clash over the hero working. The angel promises a free pillow for 5 minutes of effort, but the demon says skip it entirely. She offers the hero a bath and demands he accepts. Demand is massive. X has to agree now or lose it for good. X wants that pillow bad, says it's a favor, not a job. He finally agrees. The aunt calls him cute, asking if he's ready to be her son-in-law. Her daughter loves the hero too, and X is glad she's happy. Plus, the slime pillow is officially his. Hero blasts a fireball. Shocked by the one-year term, she asks if it could last even longer. X questions his training, admitting he can't repeat the move, but Auntie interrupts someone's here. The girl beams, calling the hero brother. Auntie thanks X-kun for making the bathroom usable. Lena confesses her love to X. X warns her to save that talk for when she's grown. Lena insists she's old enough. The hero fears talking like that in public will get her eaten by orc. She tells him if he quits adventuring, he can use his magic to work for his aunt. The hero declares he's done working. Anna apologizes she gets it now. She warns that's her final offer. Lena rushes in for a hug, telling the guy not to worry. Warned by their kindness, X thanks them both and says he's fine now. He thanks them for today. The aunt offers help anytime, and the girl reminds him his friends always have his back. He asks his aunt about the ice ball. She reveals it's a magic tool for nobles. X reveals this ball won't melt for a year. He tosses in the ball as a bonus. The girls are hyped and proud. She wonders why no one ever visits. That someone it's X? Disappointed, the hero says sleep is twice as sweet now. The pillow fixed his sleep, finally giving him over 3 hours of rest. Quitting the guild was the right move, but now he's starving. The beast girl happily welcomes the hero. A 10 silver slime meal sits on the table, toxic but instant. She demands he pay, catching X off guard. Waitress is stunned, the hero's dining here. She notices X finally wants to hit a restaurant. She shows the menu. He agrees if he likes something, he'll call. The hero asks for menu recommendations. The waiter shouts the daily special and tells the hero his food's ready. She feels his warmth as he tears up with joy. The waitress notices Axe is burning up and tearing up, and the others agree. The food looks basic, but the acid mana combo is perfect. X is stoked. He can finally turn down trash food. Hero loves the food. His little sister asks if he's free, clearly worried for him. X quits, so she proposes a team-up. The kid's done with work. He wants to walk it off before heading home, but the hero's in too much pain to even stand. Another girl demands an explanation. X catches her delicious scent, making her ask if he's okay. He apologizes. His buff spell just expired again. He activates elemental support magic, explaining his doping magic grants a 1 boost to every stat, from strength and health to MP and AP. The exhausted doctor checks his recovery, apologizing for worrying too much about the hero. To thank his savior, X grants her a month of infinite stamina, and she thanks him. She demands his name and power. Stunned, he only knows basic magic, but now she's ready for anything. She bolts to finish her task. X says his buff is guild only, but she misses the catch she wanted to get tired for a whole month. The Guild's strongest team celebrates bonus time, but a mage warns that adventurers need wisdom. She eyes the object through the magician's magnifying glass. She's hyped, calling them magnificent for crushing the Orc King, the Cannibal, and the Shadow Wolf this month. She asks how they beat the monsters. Pans keeps it a secret. Hero loots a magic stone from a forester's kill, crediting the win to a mysterious powerhouse. Pan offers drinks after a massive payday, but the mage declines, claiming exhaustion. The hero asks why he's feeling drained too. He's exhausted, his infinite power is fading, and the others agree he's right. Hero needs that wizard. Now the girl speaks. The man orders her to retrieve X and upgrade his rank. X buffed the heroes, so he tells them to rest. They're the strongest adventurers around. They need X to keep going, but the hero thought today was their final glory. Full and tired, the hero heads to his room, but a massive racket breaks out outside. He moves to avoid trouble as someone asks if the girl's bear is alive. She hugs a stuffed bear, but it's actually Ryuka. Ryuka calls X out for being late. She explains the crowd as stairs kept her from the inn, forcing her to hide. X notes her shyness, wondering how long she's been here. Ryuka hits the Quiet Cat Cafe, demanding why the hero broke the contract. Without him, they refinished and she's got a living doll factory to run. The hero admits he quit and apologizes. She asks if he's leaving, but Ryuka's stunned the hero is staying put. Rika backs the hero's call. The bear apologizes for the hit, thanks the hero, and calls him a friend. The talking bear has been boosting the buff for ages, but once it fades, his power vanishes. The girl thanks the hero. Ryuka warns that without a hero, the bear goes feral. The bear confirms he's counting on the hero. Hero tells the girl he's been kicked out of the guild. X says Ryuka was livid, acting like a total stranger. Hero adds Ryuka even swore she'd bring him to his senses. Her ex begs for forgiveness and offers a walk home. He stares at Ryuki, calling her a perfect doll. The girl beams at the hero. X and Ryuka stand together, both totally lost. He spots two beauties in the hero's room in broad daylight. She drops the news he's officially C rank, and a B rank promotion is already set for next month. He's done adventuring, reminding everyone he was only F class. She reveals the guild tested the hero to force him to rise above his struggles. She raises the stakes. The guild is ditching poor clients to focus strictly on high reward job. She's glad he's in the guild and asks for a date, but he's too busy for romance. X looks at Ryuku. Everything's okay now. The hero claims he's changed and has a major announcement. The bear warns he won. Listen to me no matter what she says. The bear speaks X's mind, and the girl shouts that the plushie just talked. Magic Bear explains mages are seared for their rarity, while the guild pockets partner commissions to fund their operations. Shocked, the hero can believe his teacher is a bear with only +1 intelligence. The bear demands the guild apologize first. Hero's finally home, but Ryuka reminds him to thank that crazy bear. X thanks him, and the bear introduces himself as Kumakichi. He asks Ryuku if she leaked guild secrets to Kumakichi. He cools down and thanks her for the backup. At the restaurant, he tells Kumakichi, Lena, and her aunt about Ryuku and his many friends. She explains why the hero refused. Missions are failing, and guild members have vanished. The hero's stunned and clueless. The guild's doomsday is almost here. X calls Kumakichi fluffy, but the hero's exhausted from clashing with the admins. He questions how Ryuki's workshop runs. Without automatic dolls, the workshop's efficiency tanks, leaving the hero worried Ryuka would miss the deadline. X doesn't get Ryuki's expression. She agrees, having heard this before. If she forces them to work, she's the villain. She claims her bear is different, while Kumakichi begs X not to leave. Rika knows X is useful, but the workshop must cut production. She tells him the world moves on without him, so stop blaming yourself. She offers a rest. The hero accepts and thanks. She knows he gets it and says goodbye. He thanks her and walks her home. Another girl apologizes. Mr. X quit days ago. The ex-guild master is shocked the kid quit, and he's the last to know. The hero's livid over the ruined food and the chaos. While the guy panics, he'll be blamed for getting fired. He vows full responsibility if things go south, telling them to reread the files while she reminds him the old guildmaster knew his stuff. She reads the document. He asks what happened. She says the application was rejected, voiding the hero's status and cutting guild ties. The ex-master calls it insane. Axis is fired, leaving the man hunting for a replacement and drowning in debt. The girl thanks the hero for his hard work. Heroes return, and she instantly spots their failure. He's stunned by the shift, but the hero warns the enemy's gotten way stronger and tougher since their last fight. 9 failures this month, a year's worth in just 3 days. Only those who haven't failed call this a strong enemy. The guildmaster demands answers for their failure. The hero calls a private meeting claiming he's sick. Team Zombie are the guild's strongest, but the hero declares today's special. He's putting every adventure in their place. One taste and they're hooked. The guildmaster demands sharp instincts and independent thinking. The guildmaster orders the party to gear up and head out. They thank him. A tavern meeting leaks the secret, and the hero's hyped A is his new power-up. She says buffing without a fight is pointless, but someone already knows it worked. Mage tells the newbie to stop thinking and obey, while the girl orders everyone to line up for buffs. She asks Mara, wielder of 15 magical abilities. Mara thanks her, but the girl is stunned. Mara's a powerhouse, spamming massive elemental spells with almost 0 mana. Another guy joins in, demanding a boost. Eyes warns it's tough work. The hero's shocked his buffs are already gone. Shocked, she asks what is happening, but they just mock her weak magic. Eyes warns the buff only lasts 10 minutes. Mage says X is buffed for a full month. Mara admits she's weak without enhancement magic. Without buffs, her mana drops to child levels, forcing her to chug potions to recover. May says they're useless without the buff, but Eyes calls it impossible. As a magic expert, she knows the boost only lasts 10 minutes. She's bummed there's no going back to the previous level now. Another girl calls for a buff master, warning the heroes they only have 10 minutes. The hero wonders, is X actually amazing? Mara needs X. He was kicked out and she's bringing him back. He's on board with the plan. She says her partner wants an apology. The guildmaster asks who he owes it to. The girl orders the heroes to apologize to X. Hero recognizes the same empowered wizard they mentioned. Auntie's sharpening her knives for 10 grand, and after this, she's done taking jobs. He used to take every order. Now he rejects them all. He thinks the world survives without him. She asks why he's there, calling him a defective magician. He spots Team 1B, the City S signature squad. Pan reminds X to respect his former colleagues. He spots the hero's glare. X admits he was emotionless before, leaving him speechless. He demands apologize. Pan's is clueless, but X demands an apology. Pan questions the hero's sanity and threatens to chop him to pieces. X claims swords and magic define an adventurer, then unleashes Ice Charm. Pan jokes he'll dice him for being cheeky, then demands to know what X just did. The magician winces, realizing the sword's been stocked for a month. Why is it frozen? He's drawn to crime, calling this a massive payday for a rookie wizard. X says Pan attacked, but he held back and lured them away to force a retreat. He warns that if he pushes any harder, something's gonna snap. Sister and the heroes arrive, calling the three on one fight unfair. He meets the manager for the first time, who's shocked to recognize his voice while the waitress beams. The manager calls Pan a coward for hiding, telling him to stop talking and start acting. Hero demands payment for last month's bill. It's already 3 days late. Pan thinks targeting the manager will dodge his punishment. The girl notes they re-elite adventurers. The hero grins, his upgraded knives are sharper than ever. Shocked and outraged, he vows to rip the mages apart. The heroes prep for battle, but Pan tells them to take a joke. The hero stalls, promising to pay up later. He demands the hero apologize. X is stunned. How did this happen? Either way, they got exactly what they deserved. Everyone hails the hero. X thanks them for the assist. The manager hopes the hero visits today, and the girl is hyped. The waitress asks what to cook, and X suggests a special dish, Hanji. If that little magician interferes, it's over. Pan says they'll grab more targets and crush them. She cheers. The forest guard's murder report is finally in, and the hero is hyped. Deep in the Devil's Forest, a bizarre sight shocks the crew. He asks what's happening, but Pan notices the magic stone is gone. The kids shocked the demon's still alive. The hero begs for help in regret, then vanishes. The forester lied X did all the work, while others stole the credit, and now they're failing. The demons survived, bonus time vanished, and X was banned from looting their magic stones. The newcomers had no clue Elfman was a traitor. That day, the Zombie Guild's young heroes were disgraced. The hero's crushed, he just lost his wallet. He offers a deal involving a service refusal, but Pan shuts him down. Pan says the shop still values the sword, and they'll pay him exactly what he needs. He asks about a gold coin. The hero forbids touching the sword, vowing to return in a month. Hero confirms he'll return the sword during next month's bonus time. Pans wonders why the bill's so high when bonus time never comes. That day, the hero never shows. Noticing his high spirits, the butler asks the Viscount if the ball went well. The Viscount explains the cooling device, reminding the boy of the ice wind tube he got from a trash mage. The princess loved the gift, and Bradley's reputation is officially set. The hero admits one problem: X isn't an adventurer anymore. The Viscount suggests home visits, certain the broke, talentless magician will jump at the job. The butler accepts first task. The hero crafts 200 identical pipes. The Viscount sees the hero's growth, and the kid thanks him for the help. Only X can restore the magic light. The job's done, but the hero's head is splitting. The butler asks what's wrong, and the maid reports that compartment 7's ice is melting. She needs a refill fast. Hero wants to trash compartment 7, but the staff calls it a waste and demands a repairman instead. The butler notes, Axis magic is unique. Nobody can replicate those infinite water jugs. The maid's stunned by X's power, but the hero reveals it's just basic magic that lasts way too long. Axe moves fast to save the family name. The butler handles the rest, promising him a fortune and a seat at the table. X spots a stuffed toy in the mailbox. X pulls out the rabbit soldier, claiming it's nothing special. Ryuka's house is packed with sewing shop bunnies. They look identical, but Ryuka can tell them all apart. X senses a trap after her rejection and heads straight to Ryuka's workshop. The boy uses Ryu's key to enter her workshop. X enters, apologizing. Hero realizes Ruka's a fellow mage. Magic is pure chaos from the land of emptiness. Every zone is locked to an element fire on the plains, freezing valleys. It's a bridge to the void, manifesting the... Using his inner magic, the mage bridges the void, striking a deal with a dweller to tear a hole in his own body. These forces naturally refuse to cooperate. Ryuka was a master puppeteer until the void took everything, forcing her to sacrifice her social phobia. Hero spots his jealous friendship with Ryuki. He's stripping her courage just to keep her isolated. X says they became friends the moment he heard Ryuki's voice. A hare-like creature stands at the door holding a ball of yarn. Hiro spots the beast tripped on hidden threads. Ryuka aids the animal, keeping it moving. She stalls, eyes glued to the action. X greets Ryuku, ready to play. She's glad he's here, but he should have at least rung the bell. X rang the bell, but she missed it. He asks Ryuku why she's so worried. Ryuka claims nothing happened, tells them to wait, and faces X. The rabbit's buried under the debris. Hiro eyes Ryuku, and she bashfully agrees. Ryuka was too scared to ask, but finally speaks up, is the hero happy? Minutes in and the rabbits are already falling apart. He apologizes, realizing how much they've regressed without that intelligence buff. X beams the rabbits out. Ryuka thanks X, declaring it ends here. He admits he's finally starting to feel like a hero. She's stunned, but X reassures her it's all handled. The hero claims he's their only hope and tells them to rely on him. The little beast spams boost, chanting the word on repeat. X points to the final door, demanding everyone listen. Small animals fill the room. The hero refuses. He's not working here. They were all here. He's got no choice. The girl pulls the hero into a back hug. Hero laughs, wondering when she'll finally chill. X asks Ryuku what she's doing. Reminding him of her warning, she explains dolls go wild without hard labor, so he should only work when he wants. She tells him he's got it all wrong and orders a breather. X apologizes, admitting he was on edge. X smells the delicious tea. Ryuka asks if he's calm, and he thanks her. She offers a large silver coin reward, and the hero is beyond grateful. She warns that downgrading your lifestyle is brutal. You'll have to grind, just like before. He enjoys the tea, calling the hero's magic way too convenient. She asks if he's even listening. Ryuka sweetens the deal. She says sorry to the hero. He warns her, stop playing with your food. Confused, Ryuka digs in. The servant tells the chamberlain the report is ready. He asks if the mage is really a rankless defect, and the boy confirms it. A cold draft leaks from the princess's magic instrument. Is it a hidden weapon? Grandpa's shocked. He asks what the hero's thinking, since X's only dream is to never work. Grandpa hears a voice and is stunned. It's the princess, the girl suggests, asking him directly. Weather's trash today. A knock at the door. Who's there? She hopes X is still there after failing to talk the hero back into adventuring. She's with Guildmaster now, claiming X will forgive the hero if they just apologize. Guildmaster overlooks X's trouble, confirming he quit over the Viscount's insane demands. He offers 10 gold and a high-pay exclusive contract. The butler asks, will the hero even return with that attitude? Master offers 100 gold and an exclusive deal. It's more than expected, but the hero's suspicious. He offers to help for just 5 gold coins. Master reassures Yesman, there's no need to worry. He cackles, leaving X stunned. X admits he quit and kicks them out. Silent, the master snaps, cursing the mages. He blew his cash on a new house and stopped worrying about his guildmate's fate. He'll reluctantly promote X to A rank, remembering the bank he made off him back in E rank. He promises no trouble. The master invites him in to talk, and the hero says he traveled all this way just for him. X demands privacy, leaving the stunned guildmaster speechless. The hero flat out refuses. He wants to leave, but she insists they here to apologize. The guildmaster caves, apologizing exactly as Mr. X demanded. X sees Kuma's words hit home. Mission accomplished. The hero says it's time to leave. Master offers Mr. X a spot in Class A and invites him back to the guild. Hero asks if Class A is amazing. X vows never to return and demands out. To him, the guild is nothing but a thankless chore. Guildmaster begs for a listen, and X is relieved he finally spoke his mind. He's recovered, and Master reviews her role and asks Mr. X out. The hero's hype that X finally changed his mind. X threatens to ditch the city if they don't move now. The man says they retreating, but tells them not to rush. She's stunned. He walks out. He cheers on his co-workers. Then X spills the truth to Ryuka. The girl turns, telling the guild master to wait. If the hero had hit another city, they'd have their shot. The guild master already blew the reward and can let Axel Eve go if he fails. The Viscount will make him pay. He reassures her he's got a secret plan. The master takes the heat and buys 3 days while the girl works her charm. He eyes the secret tool hidden in the warehouse. It's a waste for this level, but he's out of options. The ring of slavery drains a magic level, siphons psychic energy, and forces unblockable telepathic messages. The master vows the hero will pay for his defiance, mocking the weakling who only knows basic magic. Magic ranks from advanced to 0, but the ring limits his output. Doubting it'll work on the MC, he decides he needs intermediate magic first. Shocked he mocked Axe so much, the guildmaster begs them to wait. They've got the cap. He spots the guild deposit, realizing he's now a fugitive. It's a dangerous trek straight through the demon forest. He's escaping to start fresh, but can he survive the stark forest? He mocks the new defense as just crude iron wire, while the guildmaster admits he had no clue it existed. It won't stop a human, so he just climbs over. He's shocked as X's deafening magic blasts Stripe. Butler notes if Yesman ran, he failed the Viscount's task. Guildmaster asks if he built the electric fence. The kid notes the Viscount protects the forest guard. The butler says the forester is doing his job too. Hero reveals he was forced to build the fences himself, and they pack a basic but long-lasting electric shock. He threatens the prisoner with 5 years of gold mining to pay for his 5 coins. The guild catches them. They return the cash and ditch the master, but the butler spots something else. He offers him to keep the ring, but only on the condition that he wears it on his finger. The guildmaster resists because he doesn't want to put on the ring, but he must answer for what he did. The butler sends his master to the mines. The man goes cold. The hero meets the butler on the street and notices that they haven't seen each other for a long time. Butler asks if the hero really quit. Since he's already paid, X can tee back out now. However, he categorically refuses to do the Viscount's work, regardless of the reward offered. The butler realizes he's been played. The guildmaster kept every single gold coin. The young man is sure that the man will definitely pay for his deception. The guildmaster is burdened by his ring, but it will only be removed when he serves his sentence. He understands that he will have to spend 5 years in harsh conditions. He does not know that Yesman extended his sentence by 100 years after he learned of the deception. The Viscount says that the day of the meeting with the princess is approaching, emphasizing the importance of completing the task and the need to make 200 pipes as a gift as soon as possible. He suggests considering sending someone else on this mission. The young man agrees, but adds that he was told that only X could do such a thing. Another character maliciously offers to kidnap the young magician, demonstrating cunning and readiness for dishonest actions. The heroes discuss their plan of action. One of them calls Urukar the king of the slums. They decide to use this man for their own purposes, although the other hero expresses doubt and asks to think it over again. The young mage is already in captivity. Urukar confidently declares that it is enough to provide him with a room in the basement and treat him politely, so that he will definitely change his mind about resisting. The Viscount expresses surprise and admiration, dismissing the plan as interesting and not badly conceived. The other characters agree with his assessment, although one of them wonders if the hero is Syrian. He remarks that kidnapping is bad form and states that their bait plan will definitely work. The Viscount believes that kidnapping is impractical and suggests simply calling the target. He suggests luring the target into a trap with the help of an attractive woman. The hero looks puzzled and surprised when he hears the word bait. Rikara notes that every criminal organization has its own specialty, and their group is known for its mistreatment. He emphasizes that they do not have beautiful women to carry out such a plan. He orders his men to gather everyone, showing confidence and readiness to act. But when he sees who his men have brought, Urukara expresses shock. The little girl looks worried and sick. The older woman replies that she feels young inside despite her age, and with them, a pregnant woman. The hero tries to find a suitable person for his goal, but says that he has no one. He admits that he does not even know which people are suitable for him. The heroine irritably remarks that she will have to decide everything herself again. She meets another hero who greets her as little sister, and she responds dryly, showing dissatisfaction with the situation. She emphasized that he is his girlfriend and he can completely rely on her, demonstrating trust and emotional connection. The heroine declares that Urukara is the only one she loves. Urukara thinks that she is really very good, and that is why he fell in love with her. The hero expresses doubts about how attractive the girl who is proposed to be used for the plan is. He asks if she can handle the task. The hero decides to test his confidence by tossing a coin. If it comes up heads, he will choose this girl. If it comes up tails, he will have to find another person. While tossing a coin, the man suddenly loses it from his hands, which causes him irritation and frustration. He complains about losing his concentration and mood. The boy notices that the hero dropped the coin, pointing out his mistake. Despite losing the coin, Urukara states that the decision has already been made. The boy is hesitant to become the bait, claiming that he is a guy and cannot fulfill this role. The girl reproaches the hero for his whining and reminds him that she borrowed his favorite outfit. The man addresses the girl, calling her sister, and notices the second hero, but has difficulty determining the gender due to appearance. The hero confirms that he is indeed a guy, although his appearance may be misleading. The sister deduces that it is X. She notices that the other character looks carefree, which she considers a positive thing. The girl notices a beautiful girl next to X and expresses surprise, asking who she is. Another character says that their plan won't work because of the girl's presence. He suggests going home. The sister confirms that they have the advantage and must stay. She firmly states that she will do everything for Urukara, even if it means losing. The group realizes that the three people who were watching them earlier are approaching X, notices that Ryuka is scared. X asks the girl what they want from them. The girl suggests having fun, smiling, and demonstrating a cheerful mood. Ryuka expresses surprise. The toy bear notices that someone has invaded the hero's personal space while they are out for a walk. He also points out that there is a man among the intruders, causing the heroes to be surprised. He stresses that the situation has changed, and they can no longer act the same way as before. The boy says that their numbers do not matter because they have been exposed. The boy admits that they wanted to catch the hero with bait, but now they realize that it didn't work. He expresses disappointment, saying that everything would have been fine if it weren't for the girl's presence. Another character addresses the heroes. He asks them to pretend that the plan was successful and suggests going to the Viscount to continue the plan of action. The boy says it is better to be a volunteer than to be kidnapped. The man also adds that it is important to save his sister's face by showing concern for her reputation. The young hero categorically refuses to carry out the proposed plan, stating that he does not want to participate. The sister decides to leave the scene, pointing out that everything could have worked out if everyone had followed the original plan. The group of heroes admits that the situation has gotten out of control and too noisy. X thinks that they didn't know about such a trap and watches as the opponents leave. He notes that they were surprisingly straightforward and simple in their actions. Ryuka turns to X and says that he was cool. Urukara expressed a surprise that anyone could resist such a beauty as his girlfriend. She apologizes for her mistake. The man expresses irritation, saying that X is bothering him. A boy approaches whom he may know the magician. Urukara replies that he has orders to bring him to the vicar, emphasizing the seriousness of the situation. He offers to help the boy, asking what he wants in return. The boy agrees, adding that he needs cold medicine too. He thinks it is cold medicine for the child who just left. The child firmly declares that he is done. Urukara doubts his decision because it is not in his principles to use children. The girl sees that her boyfriend has found a solution to the problem. He categorically refuses further bait, declaring that he will no longer use people for such purposes, especially his girlfriend. The hero thanks Axe for coming to the Viscount and asks him if he can return to work, but the magician begins to get angry. The young hero expresses outrage at the way people use other people as bait. He questions why such actions are possible, especially when children are used. The servant points out that this may be a mistake, but the hero accuses him of trying to avoid responsibility in the face of facts. X tells him that he heard about a deal for medicine for a sick child. The servant accuses Urukara of how he treats the children. The boy expresses admiration, saying that he is ready to do anything for his friend. X replies to all this that he despises everyone. The Viscount greets X joyfully, his tone containing elements of satisfaction and relief that the hero has finally arrived. The man knew that the young man would fall into a trap. He commands the hero to begin work, confirming his instructions. The hero categorically refuses to comply with the demands. Declaring that he will never obey this man, X firmly says that he will never forgive such treatment of children. He suggests going home and offers to buy medicine for his friend, demonstrating his concern and desire to help. The hero, whose name is X, is about to leave, but the Viscount stops him. He asks him to wait and offers to talk again. Rumors from emergent that the Viscount is using children for some purpose. She adds that the Viscount's reputation has suffered greatly because of this. A girl dressed in a smart dress enthusiastically declares that she is now going to see the great magician. Grandfather is surprised to notice that Princess Lula herself went to X. The guards regret not stopping Princess Lulu in time, noting that she left too quickly before they could prevent her actions. The older character wonders if it was a mistake to consult Princess Lula. Princess Lula is the third princess. She is 12 years old, which is a little younger than her sisters. Princess Lula has an innocent but intelligent face and once brought with her an unusual thing. She says it is a gift from the Viscount and describes it as a cool and very light breeze. The man asks what it is and offers the girl to give it to him. Rampa notices a strange feeling from the object he is holding. He uses his ability to determine the danger level and finds that the object has a danger level of 1. He wonders why he is getting such a strange feeling from this object. Grandfather notes that nothing in the city has caught their attention until now. He asks permission to borrow another one for a moment, but Lula warns them not to break it, as it belongs to her sister. Hero technician. Herman assumes that the object is a new type of magical tool. He is in the Royal Laboratory of Magical Technologies and analyzes the situation. The hero learns that the item was purchased by the princess at a dinner party on the orders of Viscount Roderick. The hero expresses surprise that aristocrats should know about this, although he himself does not know the details. Herman notices that the object he is holding is very light and asks permission to disassemble it. However, his grandfather warns him, saying that the princess will be furious if he does so. He wonders if the formula is written directly on the magical stone carved into a cylinder. The boy talks about demonic tools and special relics, pointing out that there are small ice cubes inside the cylinder, and wind passes through a crack. The hero answers negatively, but expresses surprise, as he cannot find what should be there. The grandfather asks the hero what happened. The technician states that what should be inside the cylinder is not there. He looks shocked and displeased, emphasizing that the situation is wrong. Grandfather agrees, adding that it is indeed a basic occupation. Although he used to make engravings, the hero says that he does not mean engraving. Herman notices that there is no magic formula or energy source inside the cylinder, not even a magic stone. He explains that these are not ordinary magical tools, but a structure containing an ice ball and elemental wind magic. The hero expresses amazement, stating that such a magical device seems incredible. Grandpa agrees that if this item is indeed connected to X, then they don't know how to interact with it yet. The princess claims that this could be the work of a great magician, showing confidence in her words. Grandfather objects to the girl's assumption, saying that it is most likely a long-term effect of elementary level magic. She is ready to go for this object, emphasizing the importance of performing this action. The princess resolutely states that it is necessary to give the top pat to her sister as soon as possible, as it will be a surprise for her. The butler plans to hire a magician. During the investigation, the story of a young man who does not want to work was revealed. The princess advises to ask the hero himself about his story, since only he can give precise answers. She expresses confidence that a person who does not want to work should explain his motives himself. He realizes that he may have missed an obvious solution and offers to arrange a meeting with Axe in the near future if possible. Grandfather notes that the princess acted too quickly and went to the hero on her own. Lulu changed clothes at the villa and points out that the place is somewhere nearby. The princess asks X what he is doing, and then he explains that he is looking for a child to give it to. The girl offers to help the hero find the child, demonstrating enthusiasm and readiness to act. The hero notices that the girl suddenly ran away, leaving him alone. He looks surprised and worried, non-understanding where she went. The girl runs up to the cat and says that maybe he likes shashlik, so she can feed it to him. The heroes notice that the cat doesn't want to eat the shashlik. At this point, X asks what she is doing here, pointing out her presence in this situation. The child recognizes X's brother and joyfully exclaims about it. Nada asks for another kebab, which the hero is holding. He explains that he just bought some medicine for Rin. He admits that despite his unemployed status and limited funds, he still made the purchase of medicine. He adds that it hurts him to look at his interlocutor. The hero expresses confidence that he is considered suspicious because of his behavior. X hopes that Lulu will be able to find the one she needs. The girl addresses the hero, calling him a great wizard. The hero responds by introducing himself as a wizard who was called defective. The girl apologizes, expressing regret. She then confesses that she wanted to ask whoever created the item to make her one. X thinks it was done at the request of the Viscount. The hero describes the object, saying that it is indeed cool and light. He confirms that it is his creation. The girl is surprised to learn that the hero can make another such item. She asks for 2 such items, to which the hero agrees. Lulu exclaims joyfully upon learning that the one she was looking for, X, the great wizard, is indeed standing before her. She expresses her joy at meeting him. The hero admits that he can only use elementary magic and therefore cannot be a great wizard. X demonstrates the spell, wind, and ice ball, causing the girl to admire him. The hero asks the girl not to tell anyone that he is a magician. He suggests keeping it a secret between the two of them. The girl agrees, confirming that it will be their secret. The princess thanks the hero, calling him Great Wizard X. X notes that although the situation is funny, it is not that bad, especially after he managed to prove himself as a great wizard today. The young man understands that he should not tell the beast man about this. The grandfather asks the princess where she has been all this time, expressing surprise and concern at her absence. The butler says they were worried about her long absence. She gives her grandfather a gift, calling him the old man. He notices that this is not the pipe they originally had. The princess says that she asked X to make the same items for her on credit. She stresses that the royal family cannot remain in debt and that the service must be repaid. The hero has 2 problems. One of them is that outside the tavern, he often meets suspicious people in expensive clothes. He also adds that despite this, he still refused the offer. X is worried that he will soon run out of money, and this is his second problem. He says he can go back to eating mucus like he used to because his diet has changed. The hero says he even ordered juice after eating at a restaurant yesterday. The mage notices that he has warm stones, which are sky demon stone with a weak fire spell. The hero wonders what to do next. He admits that he does not want to work, but he needs mana. X decides to gamble in order to win a fortune. The hero explains that the chest is a container that allows him to pass the time, while the buff magic that increases his luck and lottery wears off. He adds that his own magic will continue to work for a long time, demonstrating confidence in his abilities. The young man admits that the very idea of gambling is bad, but still considers his strategy to be insidious, but quite profitable. Nitro greets X, causing him to become frightened and surprised. The hero asks about the condition of his girlfriend, to whom he gave the medicine. X recalls that his girlfriend from the potion shop seems to be taking revenge on him for haggling with her for so long. He added that he had already been helped once and asked to pass it on to another girl so that she would not worry about gratitude. X praised Nitra, saying that he was a good boy. The hero admitted that he was going to treat him to shashlik, but accidentally touched the wallet. Nitra asked Axe if he had run out of money since the medicine was very expensive. He explained that Rai's illness was not a cold, but a curse from Fala, and the cure for it was an elven elixir that was very expensive. The hero said that everything was fine, and there was no need to worry. He offered to take the money and buy something for Rai. X repeated that it was only possible to buy what one usually lacked money for, and assured that everything would be fine. Nitra agreed, although he hesitated a little. The hero confirmed that now he definitely has no money. Nitra thanks the hero, expressing his appreciation for his help and actions. The hero feels calm and relaxed, which gives him satisfaction and joy. He wonders how he should live now, offering options for helping tomorrow or looking after Lena's shop. The hero admits that he has no money, but he feels warmth in his soul. X notices that even the stones in his pocket feel warm. The magician ponders the possibility of selling his warm stones to a rich man who is starved for entertainment. The hero, dressed in an elegant suit and top hat, expresses optimism and hope, asking Axe if he has thought about dinner. Lula sits at the table holding a cup of tea. She thanks her assistant and says that thanks to him, they will go to meet the great magician. Cheyenne, Lula's sister, is curious about who made the cool pipe she saw and wants to meet that person. Cheyenne admits that Lula seems so naive that it worries her. They discuss the possibility of meeting the person who created the pipe. The heroine wonders why her interlocutor has been reluctant to dine with her until now, but suddenly invited her to the table herself. She feels that the mysterious magician has set his own conditions, and now she is trying to understand what exactly he has in mind. Cheyenne also notes that she heard that all mages are eccentric and expresses concern that a mage might be a bad influence on her sister Lulu. The mentor agrees but warns about the need to observe some precautions. The girl does not understand what precautions should be taken. Grandfather explains that the word work is forbidden in the presence of the magician. This causes surprise among the other characters who do not understand the reason for such a rule. Lulu notices that the hero mage clearly doesn't want to work. Shion reflects on how unfair it is to shirk one's responsibilities and take advantage of them. She feels limited, comparing her situation to that of a bird in a cage. The older man sternly warns Mishayon not to ask questions about his source of income, why he is not working, and when he will start working. He emphasizes that such questions are strictly forbidden. Lula asks her sister about it, and she says that she understands the situation. The girl notices that Shion's smile is a little strange. The hero expresses surprise, not understanding where he is being taken. He notes that he did not expect to travel in such an amazing carriage and feels excited. Thanks for watching. The young man reassures him that this is just an escort. The hero begins to feel a desire to return home and assumes that the person he meets may be of noble birth. X admits that he had been to this place before but could not have imagined that this was where they would end up. The hero is surprised to learn about secret paths known only to very close people. An attendant dressed in an elegant suit and top hat invites X to enter. He asks if the magician is okay, showing confusion. The magician himself looks surprised and doesn't know what to say. The hero speculates that this place could be a portal for teleportation, but notes that the cafe itself is a secluded corner. He also admits that he did not expect to find a secret door here. The servant becomes impatient, pointing out that they will be late if they do not hurry. The hero says that this is his first teleportation, and he wants to show off to his friends Ruka and Kuma when he returns. A group of people meet a hero. One of the characters asks the hero to go to the indicated door, demonstrating politeness and indicating the next step. X admits City came here for the food, but did not expect to see such a performance. The hero notices one of the girls in the group. Lula exclaims, recognizing the hero as the great magician, expressing admiration and recognition of his status. X sees Lulu and remembers her helping him once. He thanks another character for inviting him today. The other character says he's just a servant. The hero also notices that the second girl looks like Lula's sister, pointing out their external similarities. The girl introduced herself as Shion and introduced her sister Lulu as well as the butler. She thanked the hero, calling him Great Sage Hex. The hero admits that he is not a very good magician and is often called a defective magician. Lula emphasizes that if the hero did what is said, then he is definitely a great magician. Lula suggests that they begin dinner now that everyone has become acquainted. Shion muses that among the upper classes, the ingredients and rank of the dishes served are important issues. The hero notices that there are spoons of different sizes on the table and suggests choosing the largest one if and out. He says that the soup looks delicious. However, the hero admits that he doesn't like one of the spoons. The girl next to him remarks that using the biggest spoon can be a sign that a person doesn't have enough money. X asks where the sister's parents are today. Shion and Grandpa think that he has requested a direct audience with the king. Lula says that her parents are busy. The hero expresses regret about this. Lula points to a handy soup spoon and explains how to use it. The hero thanks her for the advice. Shion wonders if their conversation was a coincidence. Sean says she wanted to ask him any questions. The girl wonders if she made a mistake with her refusal gesture and asks if the hero has anything in common with them. The hero notices that the food looks delicious, but admits that he is already too full to eat. X regrets eating before the trip. The grandfather asks the hero if he has any problems. The hero is puzzled by this question. X explains that he wanted to sell something, demonstrating his intention to discuss the topic. The hero says that these stones warm in winter. The girl asks how much the hero wants for the warm stones. He says it is just a magic stone with entry-level fire magic, Ho01, which is a free material. The hero admits that he has a hard time understanding the pricing and would like to sell the stone for more if possible. Ryuka suggests allowing the buyer to set the price of the product himself in order to sell it at a high price. The X agrees with the proposal and suggests leaving the price decision to the buyer. The girl confirms her agreement, suggesting to continue in this manner. Lula points out that everything only costs 1 gold coin, and she is surprised to learn that the price is a whole gold coin. She admits that she doesn't know the right answer to the question. She wonders why a hero who has shown their abilities wants so much for it. She notes that refusal could lead to the hero turning against them. Lula suggests returning to the discussion of the issue. Shion agrees with her opinion, adding that the answer may change his mind. Lula states that she is the only one who believes in the great mage. He suggests that at best 7 small silver coins will be needed. The hero claims that even if they are rich, silver will suffice. Three characters sit at a table, showing agreement or satisfaction with a decision, with a mountain of gold in front of them. X notices that they are suddenly bragging about their wealth. He states that he will be able to demand a large silver coin without hesitation. The girl turns to the hero and says that he himself determines the amount of the reward. He considers whether he wants to choose one of the gold coins, pointing out that all the coins on the table are gold. Shion offers the hero his freedom of choice. He thought it would be better to get a large silver coin, but maybe he is allowed to get a gold one. It's also expressed as surprise at why there are so many of them and wonders about finding the real coin among the fakes. Is this what Shion wanted? X wonders. He admits that he can use evaluation magic to determine the difference, and replies that he doesn't know how to tell the difference between the objects since they seem the same. The girl notices that the hero's face looks strange and says that they need to hurry. The hero declares that this is his reward and expresses confidence in his choice. The girl doubts the hero's choice. She asks if he is sure of the right decision. Lula stands next to Sheena, expressing her faith in the great magician, showing support and respect. Sheena notes that the desire not to work did not make the hero greedy. The girl asks the hero, Mr. X, if he is willing to share his features. She expresses interest and willingness to learn more about his abilities. Its specialty is to increase the duration of spells, which is very useful. It admits that using only elementary magic can be difficult. The heroine notes that elementary magic is too weak for serious tasks. X reveals that he studied advanced magic but discarded it. The girl expresses surprise upon learning that the hero has discarded an entire tier of magic. She feels like a bird in a cage, pointing out the limitations she feels due to her royal family. Shion asks if he regrets his choice. He believes that he chose his path and does not know whether it was easy or difficult. The hero says that he is an incompetent person and is becoming more incompetent with each passing moment. The girl notices that the hero has thrown away his own advantages. Shion reveals that she thought it was her destiny to marry under the minister's orders, feeling doomed to do so. She adds that if the hero is willing to give up his advantages, he can be free. The girl, introducing herself as Lula Whiting, announces that she recognizes the hero as a great magician. Lula sternly tells the hero to never call himself incompetent again. The hero thanks the girl for her words, demonstrating joy and gratitude. The girl thanks the hero for a pleasant time, stating that she enjoyed it too. She promises to take care of the stones. The girl asks him to come again. X says goodbye to Lula. X thinks about the guide who wanted to return. He notices a gold coin. The hero is not sure if the coin is real and decides to check it. He says that if it is real, he will return with 10 large silver coins. Shion expresses surprise at the large amount of gold coins and asks what to do with them. Grandfather confirms that he is aware of the situation. Shion states that she will make sure that the gold comes to him naturally. From the moment Lula acknowledged X, he officially became a great mage of the royal family. It is also stated that X had not heard of this as he thought it was a fiction. X was suddenly registered as a top-ranking sorcerer. The Academy of Mages is a huge organization, similar to an adventurous guild. The documents show that X is ranked 9th. The hero expresses doubt, stating that he has not heard of such a person. He suggests that it may be the king's illegitimate child. The old mage adds that the princess may have been joking too much. The employee notes that they still don't know who X is. The magician suggests repeating the search from the beginning, saying it is ridiculous. Teacher Kukur offers his help in finding the student. The girl conducts a worldwide search for the name X. The search results show that X is currently not working. Kukur notes that nothing was found, showing surprise or disappointment. The documents indicate that X was previously an E-rank Adventurers Guild member. His nickname is Defective Mage. Owl expresses satisfaction, stating that this is all she found. The old man wonders why he needed to join the guild if he wasn't planning on working there. The girl suggests calming down, suggesting that X might have only joined once for disguise. Owl again sees information about X being in the Adventurer S Guild with a D rank and the nickname Defective Mage, to which the mage is surprised that the hero was just demoted. Kukur adds that this cannot be true for a man who became a great magician. The girl expressed a surprise, stating that the choice was accurate. The girl asks why the counter magic was completely ineffective. She looks worried and doesn't understand what is going on. The heroine wonders what it even means when she mentions Great Wizard X. X learned magic from the High Elves in the Red Forest and was recommended to join the Adventurers Guild. However, when he tried to join their ranks, he was ridiculed for the sacrifice of basic magic. Lula explains that X is now officially a mage, as she has appointed him a great mage. The butler suggests that the others will be very surprised by this fact. The heroes note that they have no idea how this all happened, but they have set up traps to track them. X is asked his name. The hero suggests the name X and adds that it seems like EQS would be correct. Another character says that if you ignore the pronunciation, the names are indeed similar. He expresses support for the hero. X agrees that walking is good for your health. He decides to go for a walk and think about what to do today. The girl suggests working together or playing with Ryuka. X offers to invite him to join them or buy something for Nitra and her sister Rai. The hero notices that Nitra looks bored after they find all the treasures in the moat. The young man asks if it is a coincidence that he met Lena. The woman offers him the cloud cakes he wanted. X says she's afraid as other plans. Hero confirms that he did want them. They also tell X that some nervous girl was looking for him, to which he replies that he doesn't know anyone like that. It turned out that the girl didn't have any stuffed animal. The girl says goodbye and adds that Mr. X will have to return soon. The hero wonders who could be looking for him so actively. He expresses surprise, asking if such people really exist. Another girl exclaims joyfully because she found this magician. X notices the fear in the girl's eyes and says that he has seen her somewhere before. The girl asks the hero to quickly use a buff spell on her. He adds that the buffs were clearly unnecessary. The hero replies that he does not want to use the buff spell, as it is better to rest and to continue in the same spirit. She also asks how much she should pay the hero, or if he needs money. X notices that everyone is looking at them and suggests that she think about whether she needs the spell. The girl asks the hero to do the same thing again, because only he was special. The girl claims that she is the most popular in the city and is ready to pay for it with her body. Another girl firmly orders the first girl to move away from the hero, demonstrating a defensive stance and dissatisfaction with her behavior. X asks the other girl if she does Mara, an S-rank adventurer. He also wonders if she is going to help him. Mara happily declares that X will spend the night with her. The girl is categorically against spending the night with the first girl. Mara uses the Shadowbird spell. The girl asks the hero not to leave, but she is bound by Mara's magic. The hero notices that where he fell is comfortable, comparing them to the most luxurious pillows. Mara demands buffs from him, demonstrating persistence and desire to obtain magical enhancements. The girl invites the hero to tell her about what she does so that he can make an informed choice. Sarah says that just a few days ago she was hooked by the idea of the great old woman. The hero wonders if she really exists. Shrouded in a dark hood with various names, the desire of eternity, the fortune-telling witch whose body is trapped in the void, the one who sees the future, and the one who has lived for thousands of years, this character raises questions about his true identity. The character says to be calm, listen, and avoid certain things. He also mentions a new type of defense called Forest Guard, a talisman called Buff. 1 inch will help overcome the obstacle. She adds that this is what the witch said earlier. X expresses disappointment, stating that he ran out of magic because of this. Syra thanks him, breathing a sigh of relief. She wonders if it was necessary to be so stubborn. X apologizes to her for dragging her into the situation. The girl introduces herself as Mara Ion, without X's magic. She admits that she is not feeling well right now. The girl who introduces herself as Mara Ion states that she feels sick without X's magic. Sarah asks the hero to do whatever he wants with her because she does not receive income unless she sells her research. X says that there is no need to be stupid and reminds that he will pay the money after the research is sold. The girl thanks him for his support. The hero explains that the protection is magic, so it is impossible to prove its structure. He adds that this is why he came to the city to investigate rumors about a new type of protection. He adds that it was simply a stun. The hero explains that lightning created by magic is energy without a power source and is simply the result of technique. The girl wonders if she might have chosen the wrong approach. She says that while magic may be impossible, electrical discharges can be created through science. X asks Sarah why she works so hard. She replies that her sense of mission is the main reason for her diligence. She admits that this is childish nonsense, but she wants to be great and for everyone to look up to her. She asks if she has offended him. The hero understands the reasons for her work and considers it normal. Mara replies that she does not want to do it. The girl expresses the difficulty of forgetting children's gratitude. Mara thanks X for his help and support. The heroine suggested repeating their meetings sometime later. They happily note that it was fun and interesting. The hero says that he finally came to play. He notices that Ryuka almost never leaves the house but decides to come in anyway. The hero explains to Ryuka that he is here to play, although he understands that this may come as a surprise to her. The girl with the cake and other characters greet the hero. They congratulate him on his position as a great magician, showing respect and joy. The boy reminds Ryuka that she was wrong to suggest reading the newspaper. She says X, pointing at the hero. The hero denies that it is not him, claiming that it is Mr. Etches. The hero points to a newspaper headline where the name X is written in large letters. He hints that if you remove one letter, it will become clear who we are talking about. Ryuka, next to him, asks what all this circus is about, expressing bewilderment at what is happening. There is a large cake on the table, and the hero assures that it is very tasty. X proudly declares himself the Great Wizard X, showing confidence in his new role. The girl asks when she will come back to work, indicating the need to continue their activities or meetings. Ryuka asks the hero if he is going to leave, pointing out that his money will soon run out. The hero responds in surprise that Ryuka has already worked and made an excellent cake. The girl speaks happily, expressing enthusiasm. He admits that he sold the warm stone for a gold coin, demonstrating success in trade. X replies that it is his thing and can be used with something else. Teddy Bear suggests using the decoration for heating. Ryuka suggests using a former pocket watch for this purpose and notes that the metal heats up easily. X suggests giving the bear cub to Kumu, but he is against it and says that it will burn. Ryuka also asks the hero not to be rude to the animal. X calms the girl down, saying that there is no need to worry because the magical flame is different from the usual one and will not burn. The hero adds that the fire that enchants the wood will not turn it into coal, confirming the safety of the situation. The little animal suggests doing something, and the hero agrees. Another animal, similar to a hare, also joins in the participation. This moment is connected to cold addiction and fever of joy of life. The hero casts a spell that calls the warmth of summer into the character's hearts. Two cute animals, similar to plush toys, express pleasure and joy. Ryuka hugs one of the animals, calling it Kuma. She says that it is so warm, showing warmth and affection. The girl notes that the animal seems alive, and the hero admits that it really is. X is glad that everyone liked his idea. The girl asks the hero X to move away. The hero asks if she is jealous of the doll, to which he states that it is her duty. The hero confirms that it is indeed about the cake. He asks if he can help with anything. The girl asks the hero X to listen to her. She says that there is one place where she wants to go. The hero announces that he has come for Ryuka. He joyfully calls her by name. Ryuka responds to the hero's greeting with surprise and joy. The girl says that the music festival will be in Shiptown. She also admits that she was so excited that she couldn't sleep last night. The hero replied that it would be fun. He notices that the coachman is in a good mood. The hero says that the only way to get to the neighboring town is by carriage, and he cannot thank Ryuka for that. The hero asks Ryuka if she left the rabbits at home. Ryuka is worried because she has never been on vacation. Kuma calms her down and says that the heroes will apologize to the other toys later. The young man notices that the Viscount has promised to distribute these pipes to the nobles, and time is running out. He emphasizes that X must be forced to make 200 of these pipes as soon as possible. The girl asks the boy who he is, showing surprise and a desire to know more about his personality. He adds that he is the Viscount's butler. The girl replies that the gentleman has been absent for 3 days. The butler thinks it's strange that the girl in the access room is playing maid, even though he himself reproaches others for it. Another character asks, "Who is there?" having heard the noise. The hero is sure he has seen this man before. Nitro points out that this is the Viscount's assistant. Rai confirms that it was actually she who was sick at that moment. The girl confesses that her illness was not a cold, but a curse of the headlight. She tells how Mr. X helped her, giving his money to save her. The girl is happy that she can freely use Mr. Access room until they find a new place to live. They notice that even after the fire, they were able to maintain this opportunity. The hero admits that he created a false impression of the magician and adds that this man is actually good. Nitra also mentions that the great mage constantly treats her to kebabs. The girl calls Nitra and says that it is a secret. The man remarks that it is impossible to believe that someone can be made to call him a great magician. Using only elementary magic, the butler decides to pretend that he did not hear the conversation. The butler understands that X is unlikely to return anytime soon and leaves the heroes. The hero assumes that X is most likely heading to Shiptown. He notices that the grim wars on the gates can leave the ID details of those who come and go. The butler notes that the territorial army has been notified of the situation. He says that if the grimoire has the name X on it, it must be guarded. If anyone does not have identification, they must be detained. The man adds that X is currently on vacation and that they agreed to make 200 tubes before he left. He says he wanted to get out of this situation easily. The second morning in the small town of Shiptown began calmly and measurably. X carefully knocked on the door of Ryuki's room. He smoothly opened the door and froze on the threshold, seeing her, who still looked sleepy and a little untidy after sleep. Despite her morning sluggishness, she smiled at him, as if greeting the new morning and the hero himself, and quietly wished him good morning. X said he had prepared milk for her for breakfast. She accepted it gratefully. They settled down together and on the bed, sitting next to each other in the cozy space of the small room. The girl apologized to the young man for not being able to go with him to the music festival, regretting that she missed the opportunity to spend time together. X reassured her that there was no need to worry about it. Everything had gone perfectly. He had especially enjoyed the carriage ride. He reminded them again how far they had come and tried to think of something else to talk about. In the conversation, he added that the guildmaster for some reason destroyed his old map, and now he would like to make a new one for himself in order to continue his business. She was quite surprised by this confession. Now it became clear to her why he had no identification and why he seemed a little strange. X stood behind her, beaming with joy and hope, while she looked at him with irritation. Their conversation continued, and she admitted that she was happy with how things turned out, because now X could become a great magician. In response, he said that he planned to become a merchant of his goods. Bowing his head, he announced that he was going to go make a new guild map. Ryuka, Gu, sitting thoughtfully on the bed and tightly clenching her fists, thought for a long time about the current situation, and then suddenly said that she would go with him. He tried to explain that she didn't have to accompany him, but she turned away and firmly said that he might get into trouble if she didn't go along. He began to convince her that he was not so weak that he could cope on his own and that everything would be fine, but at that moment a teddy bear flew up to him. The bear cub began to whisper quietly in his ear, explaining that it was about girls who could fall in love with a young man, and that Ryuka was afraid of such circumstances and emotions. Standing with the plush animal on his shoulder, the guy thought about what was said, and a new thought occurred to him that might help solve the problem. He assured the heroine that everything would be fine, even if he made new friends. But she replied that she considered them her best friends. X heard her harsh words that he didn't understand anything and thought about her accusation. They walked along the quiet streets of the city, looking around carefully. X thought that they would quickly reach the trading guild and quickly resolve their business, while Ryuka walked alongside, lost in her thoughts. She said she felt someone's eyes on her. When he asked where exactly these glances were coming from, she replied that they were women watching her. He was deep in thought, but Ryuka, looking at him with anger and displeasure, abruptly stopped him. They finally arrived at the commercial guild, where they were met by a female employee. The guys explained that they only needed a guild card, but the woman noted that they could live just fine without it. The bear, unable to bear the employee's stubbornness, intervened and demanded that she stop being so adamant and agree to their request. The woman was shocked to see the talking toy, and at that moment X quickly ran away from there so as not to complicate the situation. Returning to Ryokai, he said that if the bear spoke, even the bravest person would be frightened. At that moment, they turned around and saw the tail of their pursuer flash behind them. Two strangers were peeking out from behind a wooden box. The hero was stunned by what he saw and was truly scared, realizing that they were being followed. Despite their fear, the pursuers apologized, came out to meet them, and promised that they would not harm them, offering to follow them, which surprised the boys. They said that everything would happen very quickly, and soon they found themselves on a large ship. They were told to come in, saying that the gentleman was already waiting for them on board. The hero stood there, wondering what exactly they wanted from them in this mysterious place. In a spacious room, a girl sat on a chair, resting her palm on her cheek. Ryoka couldn't help but ask X who the woman was who greeted them so warmly. The girl, hearing the question, introduced herself as Queen Amina. The boys greeted her politely, said their names, and listened respectfully to the queen. She responded by ordering the servants to leave the room. They asked how they could help the queen, wishing to show their goodwill and respect. The queen replied that she had recently received an unusual report. Smiling, she admitted that her curiosity had gotten the better of her, and she couldn't resist intervening. X stood in slight shock from this turn of events, not expecting to hear such a confession. Meanwhile, the queen settled herself comfortably in the chair. She gently propped her cheeks up with her hands, watching Ax's reaction. The queen suddenly became interested in Ryuki's handbag and asked where she got such an unusual thing. Amin admitted that she is a big fan of the Crazy Doll brand and dreams of finding out how she can get a similar bag for herself. The boys wondered if the queen had really invited them just to find out more about the bag. X turned to her tensely, waiting for an answer. Ryuka said with a slight smirk that X wasn't very popular, and that was why the queen felt so sorry to watch them. He became embarrassed and said that he was very ashamed of such an assessment, opening his mouth as if he wanted to object to something but could not find the word. The legend of the hero's great popularity was never launched. He covered his face with his hands, as if trying to hide his awkwardness and inner embarrassment. The queen looked at them in surprise, not understanding the reason for their strange behavior. She asked again where they got this bag from. Ryoka whispered to her companion that she did not want to reveal the origin of the bag to the queen. Meanwhile, the hero stood with his face covered by his hands. The heroine remained silent, showing reluctance to tell the queen, and X quietly confirmed that he understood her position and respected her decision. The queen asked what was going on, but the young man decided to introduce himself again in order to avoid creating an awkward atmosphere and explain the situation. He revealed that Ryuka was the designer of the Crazy Doll collection, which aroused genuine interest and surprise in the queen. The queen, her mouth open and surprised, admitted that she was a big fan of Ryuki's work. A little embarrassed, Amin asked if it would be possible to place an order with Ryuki herself, expressing sincere interest and admiration for her work. He began to explain that she did not just look at the money, but also cared about each client. Putting her soul into her business, the queen asked about his relationship with the girl. She winked at him and exclaimed with a smile, assuming that he was Ryuki's boyfriend, causing a slight embarrassment to both of them. X hesitated, not knowing how to answer, and the girl with a funny expression on her face commented on the situation. Noting that the queen had gotten a little ahead of herself, the queen couldn't believe her ears from happiness and exclaimed, and her mood became even more elevated and brighter. She said that she was in a great mood and that the boys could ask her for anything they wanted. The guests were stunned by such generosity. The bear cub whispered to the young man that it was time to get an ID card, reminding him of important matters. The queen heard this and asked if Axe really did not have an ID. He began to explain. She responded positively, promising to fulfill their wish, and the boys could not believe their ears at such unexpected luck. They were brought a priest medal. At first, they doubted whether it was really what they were shown. The queen explained that the medal was intended for gifted individuals and could be used as identification. At that moment, the heroine quietly tugged at Axe's sleeve, attracting his attention. He turned to her, feeling her support. She looked at the medal with tenderness and said that everything fit together perfectly. Her gaze was full of kindness and confidence. He agreed that this was indeed the case, and together they thanked Queen Amine for her generosity and assistance. She said that the medal comes with various privileges and advantages, which caused a real shock among the children. With a slight grin on her face, the queen began to tell them what exactly awaited them next. She informed them that they were entitled to a free drink at the bar. The young man joked and asked if there would be alcoholic drinks. The monarch asked if the guests were happy about such a rare privilege, which could become a real salvation in the future. Then she suggested that they listen to music. The girl stood motionless while her companion explained that she was not too fond of large crowds. This caused confusion in the owner of the throne. The heroine noted that she herself did not have to attend the festival and looked at the young artist. She said she planned to transfer the musicians to her ship. The listeners, having settled in comfortably, enjoyed the sounds, understanding what power and influence wealthy people have. The young man was amazed and delighted by what was happening. However, soon the assembled people announced that it was time for them to return to their tent. Coming closer, she asked why they would not like to stay the night. The teddy bear immediately showed dissatisfaction and declared that their home was much more spacious and comfortable than this place. His companion tried to calm the situation, assuring him that everything was fine. The monarch cheerfully said that she would be interested to see this tent with her own eyes. At that moment, the ship began to slowly rise into the air. The guy was delighted with what was happening, enjoying every moment. The alert level rose to 3, and the throne's owner hurried to the wheelhouse to sort out the situation. She cried out in alarm and ran quickly through the corridors, leaving her companions to wait for news. Opening the door with a serious expression, she entered the wheelhouse, where her intrigued companions stood silently behind her. The queen asked what had happened and was informed of the appearance of a suspicious castle of unknown origin. Lost in thought, she pressed her palms to the door, turned to the young man, and began to outline the current situation. With a slight smile, he explained that the castle he had described was their tent. The owner of the throne was astonished by what she heard. It caused her real shock. After receiving the information, the alarm was lifted. Gratitude was expressed for the assistance and transport provided, to which the queen replied that she was always happy to lend a helping hand. Once at the castle, she expressed admiration for its scale. The monarch announced an upcoming event that was to take place here tomorrow. The young man supported the idea. They entered the so-called ghost house. The companions stepped into the castle. Everyone was amazed by the rich shelves and unique architecture that make this castle exceptional. A lively conversation began about the future of the building, and the young man offered to stay here for a while if he wanted to. The owner of the throne expressed a desire to explore every corner of the castle. There was already a commotion in the castle. The Viscount ran his fingers thoughtfully over his glass, wondering when they would finally be able to find Axe. Suddenly, he was called out to and turned around, starting a conversation with a stranger in an elegant tuxedo. The stranger smiled as if hiding some secret and, as he left, remarked that he wanted to introduce the Viscount to the princess. At that moment, the Count heard the girls nearby discussing him, which made him smile in the hope of pleasant words. However, it turned out that the content of the conversation was not at all what he expected to hear. Irritated, he slammed his fists on the table and declared that they still had not been able to find the defective mage causing the alarm. The Viscount was seized with horror. The young man next to him expressed regret. The heated Count began to angrily curse and shout about the consequences that could follow if the problem was not solved quickly. Meanwhile, the young man wondered where the young man was now, imagining him sitting on a bench, immersed in his thoughts. He felt at a loss as to what to do, but suddenly an inspiration came to him, and he headed straight to the Academy of Magicians. There he was met by a powerful sorceress. The young man handed her the case concerning the missing person, and she took the documents in surprise, clearly recognizing the name. The sorceress had admitted that she knew X, and with some respect addressed him as Sir, which stunned her young companion. She noted that she only knows one side of him, implying that much remains hidden. Releasing her owl, she loudly announced a planet-wide search and reported that he had been spotted in Shiptown. The youth countered that there had been no reports of border violations in the area, considering such a possibility impossible. She revealed that the great magician laughs at attempts to find him and manipulates everyone. Hearing this, the young man realized that the missing man was a skilled manipulator who knew where he was hiding and would definitely tell everyone. At this time, a dragon with a rider on its back was flying over Shiptown. As he approached the stranger sitting on the dragon, the rider was noticed and he tensed up, sensing danger. The stranger began to shout, demanding an explanation, but the knight confidently declared that he had finally found the one they had been looking for so long. He insisted that it was definitely X-Rage and rushed at him with his fists. He was wrong. Meanwhile, in a city district, a little girl was walking with her mother when her gaze was caught by an unusual object. There were many small toy bunnies scattered on the sidewalk. A crowd of people gathered at a small area where toy bunnies were being skillfully embroidered. At this time, one of the characters was having a conversation when a character called out to him, holding out a hat with coins. He said that they had received money from grateful spectators. The man praised his colleague for her initiative, and she said that people threw in coins themselves. It was promised that bunnies would be given to those who would provide important information about X and the girl with the teddy bear. People began to actively search for information because the desire to get a unique toy was very strong. The stuffed rabbits secretly hoped that they would be found immediately after arriving in Shiptown because everything seemed obvious. However, the search was fruitless. They could not find the people they needed. At this time, something important was happening in the palace. Luca and Amine stood together, and the young man expressed a desire to be left alone. The queen smiled and noted that she was about to fall, perhaps because X had gotten a little closer to her first. He responded by explaining that he simply wanted to make room for Ryuki. She assured that everything was fine and that this lock was very convenient for her. After a moment of thought, she asked if the next performer had arrived yet. The door began to open, and at that moment, several mysterious figures entered the room. The characters looked closely at the strangers, and one of them said with a smile that he would like to get an autograph from Axe. He soon learned that among them was a guy who acted as bait. This stranger introduced himself as Urakar, the king of the slums who had been tasked with bringing back X, and invited the young man to follow him. He warned that if he refused, things would go badly. Lost in thought, the young man realized that he could not endanger others. He stood up firmly and declared that he would go, leaving Ryuku behind. X asked that no one harm anyone but himself. Urakar promised with a smile to keep the agreement. Ruka took the boy by the hand and called out to him, but he only smiled in response. Without saying goodbye, he left, and the girl watched him with tears in her eyes. The queen asked the man why the boy was being taken away. He replied that he had been promised gold for capturing Axe. She said she would hire him, and the man was surprised. With a calm look, she offered 5 gold coins. Urukar's colleague, noticing the authenticity of the coins, laughed. Happy Man agreed to work for Mrs. Amin. He entrusted the young man with the care of Rhyme. The door slammed shut, and the queen was very pleased that she had been able to settle the matter. Meanwhile, the heroine rushed to him in tears. He apologized for making her worry, thanked the queen, and promised to return the money. The girl pressed herself against him, and he asked her to stop crying. She responded with a pitiful look and demanded that he stop his antics. Looking at him resolutely, she promised to help. He hugged her tightly and thanked her for being angry with him. He stuck out his little finger and promised that everything would be fine and that he would start taking care of himself. They promised each other this by crossing their little fingers, and the stuffed rabbit added that he would never leave him. Rika looked at him with a surprised expression, and the rabbit straightened up proudly. Amin said she knew what had happened and that someone was looking for them. She offered to let them move to her country. He became lost in thought, lost in his thought. He thought about emptiness. X peered thoughtfully at the black ball. Suddenly, a small baby appeared in front of him. He carefully stood on the X's palm. The guy realized that, in fact, he still knew nothing about himself, and this emptiness encompassed everything around him, and the previous feeling of joy was just an illusion. He turned to the void and asked what it was that it wanted X to do for her. Emptiness listened attentively to the words of the young mage, while he apologized for the things he once forced her to do. X promised to fulfill any wish of the void, but he was surprised. Suddenly, she let out a joyful cry and said that she wanted a pillow made of slime. The young man looked at the baby with affection, smiling heartily. Suddenly, he called out Laudit Ryuku, who stood motionless with a calm and thoughtful expression on her face. The girl asked what was going on, and X said that they needed to return home tomorrow, delivering the news decisively. Yes, if they were really going to leave. And she admitted that she was sad. She asked if she could come back next year, wanting to preserve those memories. The hero said that their return was possible. At this point, Queen Ami noticed that the travelers would set out on their journey tomorrow. She said that she would instruct her assistants to dismantle the tent. X replied that he seemed to have forgotten to give something in return. In response, she was amazed and seemed to be delighted. The queen then asked to accept 5 gold coins from each, to which the young man looked at her in surprise. He asked her if she was sure about this decision, and she in turn asked what they planned to do with the pursuers. He began to outline his plan of action to her, mentioning the VI count. Amin expressed her dissatisfaction with the man in harsh terms and promised to give the boys a ride just in case. She admitted that she could not be sure of their safety and added that she would help them. He thanked her, and the girl stood silent at that moment. The stuffed rabbit asked cautiously if they could ride in the queen's carriage, but the boys decided they needed to think about it. The Viscount greeted the owner of the throne with a joyful smile. She asked how he was doing, and behind her stood X and Ruka. The high society man turned around and unexpectedly met the gaze of the young magician. The aristocrat offered the job applicant a position with a salary of 3 gold coins. However, he immediately noticed that the young man was clearly unhappy. The guy firmly declared that he would never serve such a gentleman. The representative of the nobility was astonished by such a sharp and decisive refusal. At this point, the throne owner reminded him that the young man had already become one of those who served the shrine, and sternly stated that she would not allow anyone to harm him. The aristocrat was shocked. Trying to object, he was interrupted by another young man. The new interlocutor calmly and persistently asked to listen to his request, and the ruler listened attentively and seriously. He continued to talk about his love for wine and promised to open his own wine cellar for her, after which he asked the aristocrat to shut up. The mistress was sincerely glad to hear this and decided to leave the magician and the girl together. As they left, the nobles looked extremely dissatisfied. Climbing the steps, he loudly declared that the young man would regret it. The magician himself noted that he voluntarily refused the offer, and everyone agreed that this was wonderful. After all, the lord of the city himself stood up for their defense. The girl emphasized that it was his actions that played a key role in this and asked him to accompany her. He looked at her and agreed. However, the companion remained serious and did not raise her eye. They walked along a quiet street. Having reached her home, she remained thoughtful, but did not forget to express gratitude. He replied that she should thank him. She suddenly realized that all of this time, she'd been dreaming of stopping time. With her eyes closed, she hoped that something would happen. Now that would give her the strength to endure the upcoming trials. In her soul, she realized her deep love for him. As she continued to think, she realized that she didn't want to let anyone near him. Opening her eyes, she quietly asked if she had embarrassed him with her behavior. The soft, plush animal noticed that if he were the young man, he would have run away long ago because of her persistence, and the girl, a little irritated, walked on. The little animal decided to pretend that he hadn't heard anything. Meanwhile, the young man himself hurried to look for a slime pillow. Bending over and trying to stay in the shadow of the houses, the protagonist crept along the deserted street. Two townspeople were animatedly discussing something near the entrance to the shop. Almost reaching the end of the street, he heard one of the townspeople announce a reward of a whole silver coin for anyone who could discover his whereabouts. This news made him turn around. The sudden mention of his name made Axe freeze in place. Confusion crossed his face as he tried to understand who was looking for him and why. But he quickly pulled himself together and continued on his way. Having moved to a safe distance from the curious townspeople, Axe slowed down and immersed himself in thought. Possible reasons for the pursuit were spinning in his head. He thought that the VI count could not accept the refusal. He thought that no one noticed him. His unremarkable appearance and modest clothes helped him remain unnoticed. As he climbed the creaky stairs to the second floor, X encountered two guards who looked at him suspiciously. The female guard was holding an official document and examining it carefully. Before he could come to his senses, X was seized. The guards barked at him. The woman standing next to him added in a cold tone that it was useless to run, explaining that they had a direct order to deliver him to the Viscount. Hanging in the air, Axe tried to explain that he had already met with the Viscount and all issues were resolved, but the guards remained adamant. They continued to hold him in the air. A maid was watching what was happening from behind a slightly open door of one of the rooms. Hearing that the guards were not concerned with the Gaius explanations, she could not stay away and stepped forward. Stepping out from the shadows, the girl introduced herself and, turning to the guards, asked whether their captive really was the owner of the inn. The maid was puzzled by what was happening, but nevertheless greeted Axe as an honored guest. In response, he said that he had simply returned to his room. X was deeply upset that even the simple journey to his own room turned into a real ordeal. Rai, with her head bowed, tried to convince the guards of the guy's integrity, insisting that he could not have done anything reprehensible. He, carefully choosing his words, tried to confirm the girl's words, but his speech, interrupted by long pauses, was lost in the air and did not reach the guard. Tears filled the young man's eyes as he declared in despair that he no longer wished to work. The guards were completely confused. They could not believe that the reason for their search was a simple refusal to work. The confused guards stepped aside to discuss the situation. X, wiping away tears, stood next to Rai, who continued to stand in the doorway, ready to protect her master. Wiping away the last of his tears, he looked hopefully at the guards, believing that the incident was over, and that now he would finally be allowed to enter the hotel. However, despite his explanations, the guards remained adamant. They said that it was just their job. When the guards grabbed him by the arm, the hero began to desperately resist, trying to break free. He screamed that it was none of his business. At that moment, when the tension reached its peak, a thin chain slipped out of the pocket of its clothes. The metal slipped out of his pocket and rolled with a light ringing sound across the wooden floor of the second floor, attracting everyone's attention. One of the guards bent down, picked up the metal from the ground, and began to examine it carefully. The puzzled guards, not hiding their surprise, began to question him about the origin of the medal. The protagonist asked to return the precious symbol, explaining that the medal was given to him by Queen Mean herself. The guard, taking the medal in his hands, studied the engraving with the name X for a long time and carefully. Checking every detail, he was convinced of the authenticity of the sacred symbol which signified high status and immunity. With a thoughtful expression on his face, the lawman began to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. His gaze became more attentive and respectful. At that very moment, the guards, realizing their mistake, fell to their knees before the young man, bowed low, and began to apologize for their behavior. The protagonist was amazed by such a sudden change in the guard's attitude. The guardian of order, handing the medal back to its owner, now with complete trust, explained that the Viscount's order was dictated solely by selfish motives and did not take into account his true status. Stunned by the events that were happening, the boy, stuttering with excitement, confirmed the guard's words and carefully took his medal back. In his heart, he expressed gratitude to Queen Amin for the medal she had given him, which, as it turned out, had saved him from an unfair accusation. The defenders of the law, realizing their mistake, quickly left the hotel, apologizing and assuring that the adventurer could now safely return home. The heavy door of the hotel closed with a loud bang, as if cutting off all the troubles of the past day from the cozy silence of the room. The protagonist, not hiding his happiness, spread his arms out to the sides, enjoying the moment of return. Behind him, Rai, smiling with joy, watched his sincere joy. Their appearance was unexpectedly seen by Nita, who, surprised by what was happening, came out from around the corner to find out what was going on. If there was a better way to escape, it was through the window. That is what Nitra thought, but X, having calmed him down, assured him that everything would be all right now. Taking the first step forward, the protagonist slowly headed towards the bed, feeling how fatigue was starting to take its toll. Every movement was difficult, as if an invisible weight had fallen on my shoulders. As the trio stood near the front door, X and Rai looked with anticipation at their goal. The bed, Nitra, however, raised his head and looked up at them, smiling. The round pillow that X had been so eager for lay carelessly on the bed. After a long day of adventure, X carefully took the edge of the blanket, pushing it slightly to the side. At that moment, the hero, without taking off his clothes, fell on the bed, putting a round pillow under his head. The nice maid, standing nearby, tried to call out to him, but it was too late. He instantly fell into a deep sleep, and the heroes, deciding not to disturb him, left him to rest. An unexpected voice was heard in the Viscount's residence. The girl, lounging in a chair, says that she needs 120 medium-sized grimoires a day for the winter to make a special one for him. A young man in a suit stands near the door while the two talk. The Viscount feels like he is being ripped off. She pauses for a minute and then concentrates on recalling the very idea that could have changed the course of events. The girl reaches out to the cylinder as if she were about to put her thought into action. The idea was to combine wind with fire, perhaps to create something new and unusual using the power of the elements. The girl scoffs at the idea. She would never do such a thing, even if she had the idea. At the same time, she brings the cylinder closer to her. A rectangular hole is visible from the cylinder from which something is evaporating. She comments with guesses that this device was made by Professor X, combining elemental magic. As a result, something was obtained. The Viscount put on an important pose, saying that his device had received high praise from the princess. In return, he asked for a reduction in the rent for this item and promises to supply her with 30 of these pieces. The surprised girl waves her hands, hinting that he needs to stop, that he needs to wait a minute. The Viscount doesn't hear her. He's lost in his thoughts. He's already happy because a new idea has appeared in his head about how to bring the price down. In his opinion, he just needs to order in bulk, and that way he can reduce costs. He offers her 120 magic stones for one rental, but for the second one she has to pay 1 stone, to which she is unable to restrain herself. She says that she did not say a word about the rental. The butler, who stood calmly with them in the same room, is asked to explain these words. He says that the stone in question serves as fuel for the product. The girl, continuing the butler's thought, completes the sentence, speaking about the transportation of these devices. And the Viscount will need 3,600 magic stones. Stunned by such large numbers, he is speechless, and his eyes become empty. In horror, he screams that he is ruined. His voice pierces the space full of despair and bitterness. They try to shout to the Viscount, but the words are lost in the void. Elsewhere, after a dream, the hero wakes up. He first opens one eye. He feels better and has not noticed how he fell asleep. At the same moment, he gets up with his feet and stretches. First, he stretches his right hand, closing his eye. By peeling his head off the slime pillow, he confirms that this pillow is the best. Nitra meets her older brother after sleep. Behind him is a contented little sister, Rai, who puts her hands on his shoulders. In turn, X greeted them. The protagonist remembers that Rai had met with Urakar, so he asked if anything had happened, to which she replies that nothing bad had happened, that they had just talked to him. She also says that she knows him because he looked after her when she was in the slum. The protagonist thinks about Urakar and his little sister. Maybe he didn't want to hurt her, because he said he would take care of her. There was a small, silent pause in the room. No one said a word. The hero breaks the pause by saying that he is hungry and wants to go eat shashlik. The satisfied characters, smiling broadly, go to the kitchen. Already at the market, among the many food stalls, a contented Nitra is walking, humming something, and eating shashlik. Sitting down together at a table in the middle of the bazaar, the main character says that he will not take the kitten's food so he can feel free and eat as much as he can. The hero, smiling, sits at the table and says that he still won't be able to eat as much as the kitten, but he's ready for one shashlik. Voices from the people standing at a distance from Atix interrupt this idyll. People ask about the problems in the forest, saying that they are only getting worse. Three men near one of the houses discuss goblins, guards, and fragments of magic stones. They say that there are more and more goblins in the forest, and they wanted the forest guards to do a better job, and there are no fragments. The protagonist listens to their words, which makes him think that the effect of his protective magic has ended, but he does not believe it. At that very moment, the hero grabs his head and loudly forces himself not to think about work anymore, thus attracting the attention of the girls. His sister distracts him with her voice. She addresses him. This is Rai thanking the protagonist for allowing them to stay, and also thanking him for the kebabs. X just wants to know if they can handle the house. After listening to the story, he understands that the maid does not have her own place to live and wants to rent a room in a hotel. He asks her to keep it for herself. Rai jumps up from the table, surprising the hero with her behavior, and tells him that she refuses, that she does not want to rely on him so much. He gets flustered and explains the situation, saying that he is worried if they are left homeless, they can just leave. He offers his room if they don't mind. She became a little sad and only asked if she would cause him any inconvenience, to which the hero replies that nothing terrible will happen and tells them that they will now go home. Nita and the protagonist begin to drift apart. Pulling herself together, Ray tells herself that she must be useful. Once in the hotel in the main character's room, the room is divided. Nitrous offered to share a bed with a girl. In the corner, there is still a bed with a slime pillow. The maid moves away. She immediately jumps under the covers into the main character's bed, thereby surprising him. The protagonist abruptly pulls the blanket off his bed, as if awakening to a new thought or realizing the need to act. A stunned X listens attentively to the girl's words, trying to comprehend what he heard. Already under the covers, she says that she can warm the bed while she sleeps. After these words, she thanks him for letting her stay. At that very second, Nitra, turning into a cat, jumps into the bed with his little sister Rai. They feel warm together on the protagonist's bed. X watches all this, experiencing many emotions. After taking a few steps, the protagonist confidently walks across the wooden floor in his boots, his footsteps echoing quietly in the empty room. The sounds of dull thuds seem to emphasize the importance of the moment. His hand slowly reaches for the book lying on the shelf, as if guided by intuition or a long hidden desire to find answers in this particular book. The moment is filled with quiet tension and anticipation. The main character sits on the edge of the bed in which the characters were lying. X opens the book and starts reading. He starts with the second chapter with the section on the concept of magic. The first pages talk about how it uses magical elements and causes absurd results. It is said about those who are not subject to it, for example, animals and also elementary magic. This is the limit for a powerless commoner. The heroes are only interested in what kind of emotionless declamation this is. The hero reads chapter 2, section 12, which says that mages shouldn't fall into the trap of the void so easily. The boys fall asleep from this boring book. The hero glances to the side as if noticing something unexpected or trying to catch the slightest sound. X slowly closes the book he was holding in his hands, as if he had made an important discovery or made a decisive conclusion. The hero himself wants to sleep. He walks away with his head down. The boys are left on the bed hugging each other. They are covered with a blanket. The slime pillow is left in the far corner of the bed. An administrator appears in the corridor and notices the hero. There is an administrator behind the counter, and X is standing in front of him. The administrator asks the hero if he wants to go somewhere. The hero wants to rent another room. Unfortunately, the entire hotel is completely occupied, but he has offered an option in the form of an attic. A man with a mustache hands him a key. On the other hand is the protagonist's hand accepting it. He slowly climbs the creaky stairs to the attic. The attic seemed dirty and dusty, but he liked it. The attic was cheaper than the others, so he got used to taking care of it. In the attic, there was a bed, a table, and a dusty bottle. The hero concentrates gathering energy within himself and uses magic. A second later, the attic begins to shine with cleanliness, as if all the dust and darkness had instantly disappeared, leaving behind lightness and light. X reaches for his robe to unbutton it. He lays down on the bed, arms outstretched. Only his legs remain bent at the knees, touching the floor. He lays down on his clothes and the book remains near her hand. The protagonist, with his eyes open, forgot what Rai said and said something he shouldn't have said to her. He hopes she won't remember it. Chapters from the book flash before him. It's said that beastmen have good physical abilities. Nobles with magical qualities are more prone to illness. Gifted ones can cope with the void. A girl is reading a book, and in front of her is little X. She says that the old man wrote the book out of envy and prejudice. The protagonist, lying on the bed, smiles. He understands that much has changed. When his mistress picked him up, he learned a lot. He can leave Ryan Nito alone. His words break off. The protagonist lies with his eyes closed, lost in thought or rest. X has already covered himself with a blanket, and in front of him is a window with a falling star. He says that tomorrow is a new life and that he needs to go to bed early. X lay motionless on the bed, thoughtfully looking at the ceiling. Deep down, he clearly understood that there was no point in spending money on rented accommodation anymore. The three friends, X, Rai, and Nitra, raced forward. Filled with a common enthusiasm, Kitten, as always, was far ahead. They were met by a young female manager working in a prestigious real estate agency. She asked how she could be of use to the company of visitors. X enthusiastically spoke about his recent win and how he was eager to buy his own home. The thought was spinning in his head that life was a series of amazing adventures, and one of them was buying a house. He planned to use the gold coins that the wise master Amin had once given him. The female manager politely inquired about the size of the budget, to which X proudly reported that he had 5 gold coins. The girl couldn't help but smile slightly at the unusual answer. This budget proposal was clearly outside her usual experience of working with clients. She looked at the young man carefully, realizing that was such a limited budget. Finding a place to live would not be easy. However, X, maintaining a satisfied expression on his face, assured that there were no special requirements. With his head slightly tilted to the side and still smiling, he thought about how his magical abilities could transform any home. The administrator, dressed in a formal business suit, enthusiastically informed visitors that she was ready to show them the most suitable options for houses. Her graceful hand, with its impeccable manicure, pointed to an unusual structure, proudly bearing the name Rock House. The young people looked at the facade of the house with genuine curiosity, wondering how a rock could appear in the name. The administrator hospitably opened the massive entrance door and gestured for visitors to step over the threshold of the unusual home. Stepping over the threshold, they froze in amazement at the amazing interior. Their shock was increased when one of them involuntarily opened his mouth in surprise and then quickly covered it with his hand, trying to hide his astonishment. Raising their heads up, they finally saw what had so amazed their imagination. The ceiling vaults really did resemble natural rock. They were told that they were looking at a unique design project inspired by natural rock formations. Upon hearing that the bedroom was on the 3rd floor, one of the visitors doubted its convenience. After a thorough inspection, he firmly decided that this unusual house did not correspond to his ideas about the ideal home. It was not so much the height that scared him, but the concept itself, which seemed too extravagant. The next point of their inspection was the city's slums, neglected and cramped quarters, where a completely different atmosphere reigned in a completely different type of real estate, sharply different from the well-appointed other houses. The administrator, making a wide gesture with her hand, invited them to follow her in the direction of an unremarkable building that looked more like an abandoned warehouse than a residential building. What appeared before their eyes looked more like ruins than a living space. Collapsed walls, broken bricks, and the absence of a roof created a grim picture of abandonment. Noticing the bewilderment on the visitors' faces, she sheepishly explained that the house was designed in an open-plan concept which raised new questions. At that moment, their little companion, sensitively reacting to extraneous sounds, pricked up his ears and pressed them to his head, as if preparing for possible danger. Stepping forward boldly, he rushed in front of his master, ready for a possible attack. His fur stood on end, and his tail fluffed up with tension. His reaction was lightning fast. He managed to catch the flying stone right with his hand, demonstrating amazing dexterity and speed. The owner, overcome with anxiety for the safety of his friend, quickly rushed to find out whether he had been hurt while catching the dangerous projectile. Suddenly, 3 locals emerged from behind the ruins. Mistaken for invaders, they began making an angry noise, waving sticks and demanding that the area be immediately abandoned. The visitors rushed to clear up the misunderstanding, quickly explaining that they were just looking at the house and had no ill intentions. One of them, slightly nervous and trying to sound convincing. Having realized the true cause of the conflict, one of the heroes felt sincere regret and awkwardness for what had happened. After talking with local residents, it became clear that the house could have been habitable, if not for the lack of a roof, which was now used by local children for games and entertainment. Realizing that this option was not suitable, they asked to see other available properties, hoping to find a more acceptable option. After a moment's thought, the administrator, slightly frowning and biting her lower lip, admitted that the proposed house was slightly over their budget, but she had another option to show. The next point of inspection was a cozy area. The kitchen interior greeted them with coziness and neatness. After leading them inside, she described the layout in detail. 3 rooms, a spacious kitchen, a living room, and proximity to a market where they could buy everything they needed for a comfortable life. The young man, fascinated by what he saw, imagined how he could transform this place. However, he began to be tormented by doubts. Would he be able to buy a house and get a loan without having a permanent job? Noticing his concern, the administrator approached him with genuine concern and gently asked about the reasons for his worries. In her outstretched hand lay 3 candies, like a symbol of hope and support, a quiet sign of friendship and warmth. The young man, deep in thought, tried to understand whether his heart really desired this house or whether it was just a temporary infatuation that would soon pass. In his unusual attire, a small hat and a cloak, he was contemplating a serious step. Was he ready to buy a house, even if he had to work hard to achieve it? A slight smile touched his lips. Perhaps now it was not so much about the house, but about a simple candy. Having tried the treat, he noted with undisguised pleasure its surprisingly pleasant taste, which instantly warmed his soul and somehow magically dispelled the last doubts that tormented his heart. With a sincere, slightly embarrassed smile that made his face especially attractive, he admitted that perhaps right now, at this special moment in his life, he really needed this house. Overcoming his natural indecisiveness and inner timidity, he nevertheless decided to approach the administrator, politely and a little hesitantly, asking him to give him a little more time for an extremely important conversation. She, struck by his sudden address, responded to his request with genuine surprise, and he, feeling extremely awkward under her attentive, scrutinizing gaze, lowered his eyes in embarrassment. His gaze unmistakably betrayed the most cherished desire of his entire life, which he was finally ready to voice. Overcoming all his fears and doubts, gathering his courage, he took a deep breath of fresh air, as if preparing to take the most important leap of his life. With his head held high, in which determination and slight uncertainty were surprisingly combined, he announced his intention to buy a house. The news of the purchase brought the administrator to sincere, genuine joy. He thanked the future owner with all his heart for the decision he had made. While they were leisurely heading to sign the fateful agreement, the little furry companion, completely bewildered by what was happening, only meowed in bewilderment. The ex and the administrator were talking enthusiastically in the spacious lobby of the real estate agency. The woman, beaming with joy, sincerely congratulated the young man on his successful choice of housing. Suddenly, as if drawn by a magnet, his gaze was drawn to the far corner of the room. Someone's figure was moving there. The young man froze, unable to tear his eyes away. In a luxuriously furnished room decorated with tapestries and antique furniture, sat a young girl. The girl, adorned with an elegant crown studded with precious stones, rose gracefully from her seat. She announced that it was he they were expecting. Without thinking, he waved his hand to the stranger, as if to an old friend. But at that moment, the administrator, turning pale as a sheet, exclaimed that in front of them was Princess Lula, whiting herself. Despite the shocking news, the young man continued to smile at the girl as if he had met an old friend. The princess rose gracefully from her seat, and at that moment the young man finally realized that this was not an ordinary girl standing before him, but a real ruler. Clutching his head, he mentally scolded himself for his short-sightedness, realizing how ridiculous he looked in the eyes of the princess. It flashed through his mind that he was a fool. She watched his reaction calmly, and her faithful servant gallantly offered her his hand. At that moment, the young man noticed how gracefully she accepted his help. He was so confused by what was happening that he began to scream from the emotions that overwhelmed him. Being in complete confusion, the princess, to everyone's surprise, admitted that she had looked into his past. There was genuine sadness in her voice as she shared her discoveries. She bowed deeply and apologized, completely stunning those present. Her graceful, dignified movement left everyone present holding their breath. X couldn't believe his eyes. The princess herself bowed before him and asked for forgiveness. The butler, standing nearby, pierced the young man with a furious, penetrating gaze, clearly expressing his dissatisfaction with what was happening. The young man, gathering all his courage, dared to object to the princess, insisting that it was not proper for her to humiliate herself in such a way before him. She met his words with a calm, piercing gaze and gently reassured him, letting him know that there was no need to worry. The butler, not hiding his disappointment, turned away from the princess, clearly not approving of her behavior. X, stumbling with excitement, thanked her for her kind words, but hastened to assure her that everything was fine. The princess looked at him with genuine bewilderment, trying to understand the reason for his confusion. With a charming smile on his face, the young man thanked her for not holding a grudge against him. The girl continued to look at him with a mysterious smile, as if she was about to reveal some secret. At this point, X, feeling awkward under the gaze of those around him, admitted that he was in a difficult situation. He did not know how to address the girl. She was genuinely surprised by such a question, and a look of genuine surprise flashed across her face. The princess thought for a moment, as if trying to find the right words for an answer that seemed obvious only to her. Coming closer, she took the boy's hand, the touch light but firm. Lula said he could address her as his friend. At this moment, the princess, turning to her faithful servant, said imperiously that the time had come to announce our decision. He began his speech with an air of importance, choosing each word carefully. The butler announced that, as a sign of deepest gratitude for his services, His Majesty and he himself wished to present the young man with a house of his choice. The young man was so flattered by this attention that he could hardly speak. With a stumbling voice and a slight emotion, he muttered that it was too generous a gift, and added that he was not worthy of such an honor. When asked about his preferences in choosing housing, the young man modestly answered that any inexpensive option would suit him. The main thing is that the house is cozy and brings joy. The princess and her retinue happily announced that they had the perfect option. With a dazzling smile on her face, she announced that they had found a magnificent home for him, adding that it would only cost 1 coin. X couldn't help but smile widely as he looked at them. Everything that was happening seemed like an incredible dream that he couldn't believe in. His feet seemed to root themselves to the patterned tiles of the floor as a new chapter of his life opened up before him. The mansion that appeared before them turned out to be a real palace. The princess, making an elegant gesture with her hand towards a magnificent building, playfully winked at the young man as if sharing his sincere delight. X-Ray and Nitrous stood side by side, unable to take their eyes off their new home. They felt that the future, which had seemed so vague, had suddenly taken on a clear outline. This majestic mansion was now theirs. As he walked up the majestic stone steps of the old mansion, X could not contain his surprise and noted that such a luxurious house could not cost a little. After telling the story of the house, the princess couldn't help but smile and giggled quietly, imagining all the circumstances. Lula said that the house was sold for 1 coin. The hero thought to himself that if this was the only drawback, then he was completely unworthy of such a beautiful house. Seeking advice, he mentally turned to the void, his faithful companion, who he knew always appeared at the most unexpected moments. At that moment, a small void suddenly appeared from under X's cloak. X was so astonished by this sight that he froze for a moment, as if petrified by surprise. His heart began to beat faster when he saw how the void, like a small spirit, began to manifest itself more and more clearly. Emptiness, taking a few unsteady steps with his tiny legs, found himself on the ground, looking incredibly cute and harmless. The guards, noticing the unusual creature, immediately became wary and surrounded the group, loudly declaring their duty to protect the princess. Rai and Nitra, who were behind the guards, tried to calm them down, assuring them that the little void would not harm anyone. X, realizing that the baby had become so material that everyone could see him, was deeply upset. He understood that this was a sign of the strengthening of the magical connection between them, and this could lead to serious consequences. He and the void exchanged long, meaningful glances. The hero thought with alarm that he had reached the third stage of magic. The baby was getting stronger, and the creature was looking at him with its big, kind eyes, as if trying to convey its feelings without word. He knew that if the creature completely invaded his body and materialized, he could become either a demon king, a devil, or a hermit. The further fate of such people remained unknown, since they were forced to leave the settlement. No one knew what awaited them in the future, and this uncertainty frightened X no less than possible transformations. The butler, maintaining a serious look and straightening up to his full height, asked to examine the baby. Sinvoid exchanged looks of concern and determination. The butler, without wasting any time, took out a special device for reading wishes, a strange device that looked like an old camera. The hero looked at the butler in bewilderment when a piece of paper with a wish appeared from the machine. The butler, after reading the note, maintained a serious look, trying to understand the demon's desire. The princess, looking at what was happening, first frowned in bewilderment. Her thin eyebrows came together at the bridge of her nose, and then she could not hold back a smile. Her laughter echoed across the courtyard like a bell, causing everyone present to turn in her direction. Lula began to wipe away the tears that had appeared from laughter. She found what was written in the note incredibly funny. The butler, embarrassed by the princess's reaction, humbly bowed his head and asked for forgiveness, as if he was the cause of her merriment. X, breathing a sigh of relief, finally realized that everything had worked out and allowed himself a quiet smile. He turned his gaze to the little void who stood with his arms crossed over his chest, looking at him with an expression of deep sadness. Smiling at his companion, X gave his consent, decisively confirming their intention. Emptiness, hearing these words, instantly perked up and began to joyfully run and jump, celebrating their new victory. Turning to Ryan Nitra, X invited them to inspect the house from the inside, which caused genuine joy among his friends. While the friends were climbing the stairs, the princess and the butler approached X, offering their help if necessary. Gratefully accepting their offer, he watched as the girl and the butler prepared to leave. The girl, linking goodbye, expressed tender hope for a quick new meeting. When they got into the carriage, the princess tenderly thanked Ax once again for everything he had done for them, and he, standing on the porch, waved his hand after them for a long time, trying to remember every moment of their farewell. The carriage rolled slowly along the road, carrying the princess and the butler further and further away from the majestic mansion. The princess, comfortably seated on the soft cushions of the carriage, could not take her eyes off the butler. The butler, sitting opposite, watched the princess carefully. Unable to bear the prolonged silence, the butler gently asked the princess if she remembered anything particularly funny. The princess, not hiding her pleasure, told him what had made her so happy. It turned out that the mysterious note he had read contained the simplest wish of the demon. The demon simply wanted to have his own home. The girl, her voice breaking with emotion, begged the master to give her a position as a real maid. With a soft smile on his face, he reassured her that everything was working out for the best. The heroine noted that the new mansion was very spacious and assured the gentleman of her readiness to help with the cleaning. She emphasized the impressive size of the house. With a thoughtful expression on his face, he reflected on the fact that he had originally been looking for a house solely for the three of them to live together. He had hoped that it would bring her happiness and help relieve her anxiety, but it had not. The girl stood before him, her palms folded in prayer, and he was lost in thought. Perhaps it really would be easier if she stayed and took on the household duties. He did not object to the thought. Her face instantly lit up with joy when she heard his agreement. The girl was literally jumping up and down with joy, filled with enthusiasm. At this time, her master calmly continued his speech, watching her stormy display of emotions with a slight smile. X, continuing his speech, threw a handful of coins in front of her, assuring her that it would be enough for several years. She froze in amazement at such a generous gesture. He asked her to buy some groceries. The girl was speechless when she saw the gold coin, the owner noticing her reaction mentally. He asked her what salary she would like to receive, but the girl resolutely answered that she did not need money for her work. The owner, with a good-natured smile, shook his finger at her, as if playfully, and said that if she ever needed anything, she should definitely contact him. She answered him with a smile, light and a little mysterious. The owner immediately understood from her look that she would hardly ever turn to him for help, even if such a need suddenly arose. The hero declared that the current matter was finished. Then, looking into the distance, he wondered where Nitra and Void had disappeared to. Suddenly, he thought he heard their voices somewhere in the distance. He opened the door and saw the missing people. They were so engrossed in something so interesting that they didn't even notice him calling out to them, continuing to look at something with curiosity. The hero guessed that they had settled in the kitchen and were looking at his creation, an endless water jug, with genuine interest. Everyone was so engrossed in studying this unusual object that they didn't notice him enter. The kitchen was bustling with life. The boy suddenly realized that perhaps it was Void who had used his magic. As if hearing his thoughts, Void turned around and gave him a joyful look, as if proud of his magical tricks. Emptiness joyfully rushed toward the heroes, shouting as he ran for them to praise him, as quickly and loudly as possible. X knelt down in front of little Void and said, with sincere gratitude, that he was adorable. The little one beamed with happiness. The maid gently stroked the baby's head and said with a kind smile that he was very good. In response, the child burst into joyful giggles. While Void was enjoying the attention and genuinely enjoying the compliments, X watched him with concern. He thought deeply about how important it was that all this praise not go to the little boy's head. The character clapped his hands vigorously to attract attention and announced in a firm voice that it was time to finish moving. Then the character ordered the little Void to return to him in a stern tone and categorically forbade him to go outside. He was very surprised by such an order. His face immediately darkened. The hero swung his arms wide as Void awkwardly crawled under his large cloak. He gently apologized to the little boy and added with a smile that they would have time to play later. X said that they needed a futon Rai. Hearing this, responded with confidence that they should not worry, as she knew perfectly well where to buy one. She added that they could take him there right now. After some time, they finally reached the right place. All the heroes were filled with joy. The client stood in the middle of the showroom and said in confusion that he did not know how to make a choice. Next to him was a consultant who suggested that he could personally check how comfortable each model was. He lay down on the bed, covered himself with a blanket, and noted with pleasure that the footer was incredibly airy and pleasant to the touch. When X expressed her admiration for the futon and called it perfect, Rai couldn't help but be overjoyed. However, her mood darkened when she noticed the high price, which was well over her budget. She took a deep breath and strongly recommended that the client check out the comfort of other futons on display before making a final decision. The young man took the futon in his hands, looked carefully at Rai, and after a little hesitation, agreed with her proposal, saying that fine, he would do so. After carefully examining all the futons, they came to the general conclusion that the selection process was quite tedious. The hero thanked Nitra for her help with a sincere smile, saying words of gratitude. He gladly volunteered to help carry the things in the chosen futon, demonstrating his willingness to be useful. The protagonist said that he had managed to inspect the entire house and now felt very tired. At that moment, the Void suddenly flew out of his cape. Then he announced that it was time to start the game. The hero had to refuse the Void at join game, explaining that now it was necessary to put aside all entertainment. The hero, clearly upset by such an answer, took offense and declared that in this case he would play alone. At this time, the moon was already shining outside, and in the house, emptiness was diligently lighting the lights. He slowly wandered around the house. Every now and then he created balls of wind that floated in the air, casting strange shadows on the walls. The character waved his hand and a glittering ball of ice appeared in the air. The magic easily obeyed his movements, creating a transparent ice miracle. He continued to cast his spell, his face glowing with joy. The words about being called delightful kept coming back to him. Emptiness slowly walked up to the wall where the paintings were hanging. He took one of the paintings down, turned it over in his hands, examining it carefully from all sides. Emptiness acted calmly and confidently, without the slightest shadow of excitement. Someone suddenly tapped the sleeping Rai on the shoulder, and she woke up abruptly, meeting Nita's gaze, realizing who had disturbed her sleep. The girl looked around. A mysterious smile lit up his face, and he said mysteriously that she should immediately take a look at what was happening, because something incredible had happened. His voice sounded intriguing, raising anticipation and awakening curiosity. Rai was still not fully awake, her sleepy eyes half closed by heavy eyelids. Nitras slowly turned the door handle and it creaked open. The girl, frozen, placed her eyes wide and in amazement, and her breath caught in her throat. She froze in the doorway, covering her mouth with her hand in amazement. In silent amazement, Ray wondered why the paintings were floating in the air without support, experiencing mixed feelings of bewilderment and admiration. Nitra, like a seasoned acrobat, leaped lightly into the air and landed on the floating painting, a mischievous smile on his face. He announced that it was now Reyes' turn to join him on this aerial journey. The girl screamed. In horror, she watched her friend jump recklessly from one floating painting to another. Balancing on the edge of one of the paintings, Nitra performed complex pirouettes, causing Rai to close her eyes in horror and beg him to be careful. At first, she protested loudly, screaming that they shouldn't do this, that it was pure madness. But gradually, her screams turned into laughter, and a sincere smile began to shine on her face. Gradually, the girl's fear began to recede, replaced by curiosity and a desire to join the young man in this unusual entertainment. At that moment, their attention was drawn to a mysterious figure that appeared out of nowhere. Void stood watching them, his gaze full of mystery and curiosity, as if he was witnessing something unusual. Nitra, noticing the appearance of the mysterious character, assumed that it was the hand of the Void that was responsible for creating this magical space with floating paintings. The kid continued to stand, smiling mysteriously. Rai, addressing the little one with warmth in her voice, noted that he was a very good and wonderful boy. The hero confirmed that their mysterious friend was really cool. In emptiness, hearing these words, began to smile. The hero, still smiling, took a ripe apple out of his pocket. The girl, seeing this gesture, began to stroke the kitten and thank him for being such a good boy, creating an atmosphere of warmth in the air. Rai walked happily around the house with her friends, her face glowing with joy. At one point, she stopped and, holding a ripe apple in her hands, offered to give it to the master as a token of gratitude. Rai took something shiny out of her pocket, carefully turned the object over in her hands, and without taking her eyes off it, began to speak. She took a small shiny knife out of her pocket and, continuing to turn it over in her hands, said that it would be more convenient if they cut the apple into slices, as it would be easier to eat. Rai, peeling an apple, said that after she finished, everyone would have to change clothes. Her words scared the kitten. He turned noticeably pale. He waved her away with his hand in irritation. Deep in sleep, the gentleman sprawled out on the wide bed, taking up almost all the space. A sudden knock on the door broke the silence of the room, echoing off the walls. It was as unexpected as a clap of thunder on a clear day. But the gentleman, deep in sleep, continued to snore. A kitten and a girl entered the door with a tray of breakfast for the sleeping gentleman. Rai, holding the delicious food in her hands, wished him a good morning and retrograded act. Rai carefully lifted the lid off the tray, and the owner froze in admiration. On the tray lay an apple cut into thin slices. X couldn't help but smile as he looked at the exquisitely decorated apple. He sincerely admired the chef's skill and warmly noted how sweet and touching it was. He smiled broadly and, feeling genuine gratitude, thanked everyone present for such a pleasant surprise. While the hero happily tried each slice of apple, admiring its taste, everyone around him smiled and told how the little helper tried his best to help prepare this treat. X bowed his head slightly, a warm smile spreading across his face. He addressed Rai with sincere thanks, telling her that she was doing a great job, and expressed his appreciation for her contributions. The girl was so embarrassed that she couldn't look away. She looked at him without blinking, as if enchanted, afraid to miss the slightest movement or facial expression. The girl screamed loudly in delight. Her face lit up with a wide smile, overwhelmed with emotion. In a burst of enthusiasm, she exclaimed that she would continue to work hard, putting all her strength and energy into her work. The heroine settled down in a cozy corner, holding a cup of tea and a plate of cookies. She broke off small pieces of the treat with leisurely movements, bringing them to her mouth. She settled herself on the edge of the bed, tucking her legs under her. She bit off each piece of cookie mechanically, barely noticing the taste. Her thoughts were absorbed in X. She imagined what he was doing now. Suddenly, the eyes of the stuffed rabbit she was petting mechanically began to glow with a soft light. Little X, pale and thin, sat right on the cold floor. He carefully held a piece of bread in his hands. His eyes showed an unchildish weariness, but he had only just turned 10. In the background sat a black-haired man. His face was deeply thoughtful, as if he was trying to comprehend something important. Suddenly, he announced that they had maple crabs today for the first time in a long time. X turned sharply at the familiar voice, and images of the past flashed before his eyes. After their parents fell into the hands of bandits, it was his aunt and uncle who took care of the boy. The uncle who was sitting by the fire turned his head sharply towards X and, frowning, rudely asked what he was staring at. He called him a brat, but the aunt who was standing nearby gently put her husband in his place. The hero was grateful to them. There was an amazing silence all around, broken only by the rustling of leaves and the occasional singing of birds. X settled down on an old log, looking thoughtfully into the distance, where the sky met the forest. The question of how he could be useful to these people did not give him peace. A deep sigh escaped from his chest. He felt obligated. Suddenly his gaze froze as if he had seen something unusual. His eyes widened slightly and his eyebrows rose slightly. A thought flashed through his mind that could change his entire understanding of what was happening. Two figures appeared before him, animatedly conversing with each other. Their conversation concerned some maple crabs, creatures that Axe had sometimes not heard of before. Their voices seemed to come from far away. One of the interlocutors, frowning, asked if the forest where these crabs live is really so dangerous. He had heard horror stories about people dying there. The second man, waving his hand, said that it was not true. The words of the strangers made the hero think deeply. His Uncle S. words came to mind, saying that everything grows very poorly in this forest, and that it seems to suck the life out of everything living. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a voice calling out to the boy. He jumped in surprise and turned around sharply, his heart beating faster with fear and anxiety. Flustered, he asked the strangers what they wanted. They offered to join him in the crab hunt, but warned him not to tell anyone about it. The offer sounded tempting. The young man's thoughts drifted to the mysterious maple crabs. He tried to imagine what they looked like and suddenly remembered this was his uncle's favorite delicacy. His imagination drew strange pictures, and he became more and more absorbed in thoughts about crabs. Uncle always said that he had never tasted anything tastier than them, and now the boy had a chance to please him. Gathering his courage, he agreed to the stranger's offer. Their feet confidently walked on the ground, and the outlines of the red forest were already visible ahead. Raising his head, the boy admired the unusual sight. The leaves on the trees were glowing with bright colors. He noted with admiration that they had already arrived in this mysterious red forest. Carefully plucking one leaf, he brought it to his eyes and noticed that they were shaped like hands, as if nature itself had created this amazing resemblance. His companions were visibly nervous, their faces pale with fear. This forest really did have a special effect on people, causing inexplicable anxiety. One of the guys couldn't stand the tension and expressed impatience about how much further he had to go to the crabs, noting that the ground was squelching and hard to walk on. The boy, feeling more confident than the others, extended his hand forward and took a step, pointing to the unusual sight before them. He happily reported that this was where the very crabs they were looking for were. His finger pointed to the little maple crabs that were scurrying busily about the ground, like little workers doing an important job. Their quick, coordinated movements gave life to the scene. The young man dropped to his knees, his eyes wide with amazement. The heroes clearly intended to collect as many crabs as possible. There was a sense of anticipation in the air. Taking one crab in his hands, X carefully stroked its shell, thinking that with so much prey, perhaps he would get something too. The boys enthusiastically set about catching crabs, their faces glowing with joy and anticipation. They scurried deftly between the trees, deftly catching the crabs that were trying to escape. The hunt began successfully. But suddenly, one of them jerked his hand away, screaming in surprise, and exclaimed in bewilderment what was happening. His sudden reaction alerted the others, and everyone froze, listening to the strange sounds around them. One of the boys, trembling with fear, turned around and muttered that these were some unusually noisy flies that he had never seen before. There was genuine horror and fear in his eyes as he raised his head and saw something that made his heart beat faster. His face turned pale, and his lips were dry with excitement. It was a huge swarm of insects. Still holding the crab in his hands, did not understand anything. He looked at his companions who were shouting in panic that these were dangerous spiny reapers, predatory insects, about which there are terrible legends. The guys ran away in horror, leaving the hero sitting in place in complete bewilderment. He still couldn't understand what was happening and why everyone was so scared. The young man, absorbed in his thoughts, looked down without taking his eyes off the huge swarm of insects above his head. Suddenly realizing that something was wrong, he looked up and froze in amazement. What met his eyes made his heart skip a beat. Looking at the dark silhouettes swirling in the air, he remembered with horror the stories about the prickly reapers, dangerous insects whose bite could cause unbearable pain. At that moment, his attention was drawn to a strange figure that appeared out of nowhere. Long hair fluttered in the wind, creating a mysterious glow around his head. A sharp roar like a clap of thunder suddenly broke the silence. It was a deafening explosion that made the earth tremble. The frightened young man mechanically covered his head with his hands, trying to protect himself. The young man slowly lowered his hands, his eyes widening in amazement at the sight of the stranger. Her long blonde hair fluttered in the wind. At that moment, he realized that it was this mysterious figure who had somehow saved him. The mysterious figure, wrapped in clothes with long hair fluttering in the wind, stood motionless with its back to the young man, keeping silent. Its slender silhouette seemed almost unreal in the semi-darkness. Turning to the young man, the stranger cast a calm, penetrating glance at him and asked sympathetically if he had been hurt. Her eyes showed genuine concern. Young man could not tear his admiring gaze away from her. Enchanted by her beauty, he could not hold back his admiring words, confessing that he had never seen such a beautiful person. Enchanted by her presence, he continued to look at her, unable to look away. Her unearthly beauty literally made his hair stand on end, and his head began to buzz. As a sign of deep gratitude, the young man dropped to one knee and, bowing his head, began to express gratitude to his savior for appearing at exactly that right moment. Without rising from his knees, he slowly raised his head and continued to look at her. Noticing his condition, the stranger leaned slightly towards him. There was a soft note of concern in her voice, as she noted that his legs seemed weak from excitement, and asked him not to overexert himself. She paused for a moment, looking thoughtfully at the young man, and said that perhaps he was an uncut diamond whose true value had not yet been revealed. Supporting her chin with her graceful hand, she studied Axe with a keen gaze, as if trying to penetrate deep into his soul and understand all his hidden thoughts and feelings. The young man continued to sit, looking at her in bewilderment, completely unaware of what was happening. Then the stranger told him that she sensed a magical gift in him which perhaps even surpassed her own. She thoughtfully guessed that he must have a rather weak constitution, noting that this was quite typical for those whose magical abilities were at a very high level. The young man lowered his eyes in embarrassment and turned slightly pink, confirming her guess, admitting that he really did get sick often and had never been particularly hardy. Thoughtfully tilting her head to the side, she listened attentively to his story without interrupting. After a moment of silence, during which she carefully studied his face, the stranger took a step closer and delicately hinted that if he didn't mind, she had an interesting proposition for him. The young man looked at her. Leaning towards him, she gently asked if he would agree to move in with her. With a slight smile on her lips, she explained that she wanted to help him unlock his power and asked him to become her apprentice. The young man continued to look at her attentively, taking in every word. His heart beat faster, and thousands of thoughts swirled in his head. The stranger looked at him with a barely noticeable smile, as if she already knew that he would agree. Her lips trembled slightly from suppressed excitement. He still sat there, clenching his fists so tightly that his knuckles were white. Something about that sentence made him vaguely uneasy. Having made up his mind, he took her hand and tremblingly asked her to help him find his way in magic to reach the necessary points of development. He called her teacher with deep respect the first time he said the word with his head bowed. She responded with a warm, sincere smile that expressed approval of his choice. The stranger gently pulled him by the hand and said that in that case she would wait for him at her place. Then she asked him caringly if everything was all right with his family. The young man looked at her with undisguised surprise. He asked if all this was really happening, The thought flashed through his mind that if he left the family, his uncle and aunt might become happier. She confidently led him along, telling him it was time to go. The young man, full of hope, obediently followed her. Suddenly, something stopped him. He stopped abruptly, clenched his fists so hard that his knuckles turned white, and took a deep breath. Noticing his stop, she turned around and surprised he, gathering his courage, asked her for a little time. The tired man slowly walked up the steps and stopped at the threshold of the house. Taking a deep breath, he said loudly that he was back. It was Uncle Axe, exhausted from a long day of work and heavy thoughts. Entering the house, he was surprised to find the room as empty. The silence seemed unnatural, and the absence of familiar sounds was alarming. He expected to see someone from the household, but the house seemed deserted. Looking around, he automatically glanced towards the kitchen, where someone was usually. His gaze lingered on that spot, and he thoughtfully lowered the heavy bag he was carrying on his shoulder. As he approached the table, he noticed a plate of crab on it. It was strange because they had already eaten crabs yesterday, and he was sure that there was nothing left. But these crabs were fresh, as if they had just been cooked. His attention was drawn to a small note lying next to the plate. Unfolding it, he read simple but meaningful words of gratitude to them for everything. This is a message from Act. All over the place, on the mighty branches of the trees, a variety of houses were visible. When they finally reached out their destination, the stranger pointed to one of the houses, proudly declaring that it was her home. The young man could not hide his amazement. He had not expected to see such a large settlement. Lightly touching the door handle, she opened the door and gestured for the young man to enter. Looking carefully at her guest, she gently remarked that he needed to refresh himself after the long journey. With graceful grace, she placed the steaming bowl in front of him. The steam rising from the dish created a cozy atmosphere. The room was filled with delicious smells from the fragrant dish. The young man was struck by the enticing aroma that made his head spin. He took a deep breath of the magical smell and admitted that he had never encountered such a delicious dish. His gratitude flowed in an endless stream. He was profuse in his thanks for the warm welcome, not knowing how to express all his gratitude. She watched him with a gentle smile that made her face especially beautiful. As he began to eat, he noticed the unusual, incomparable taste of the dish. With a light laugh, she admitted that she had been experimenting with maple crab extract, a rare delicacy. His genuine surprise and admiration touched her, causing her to smile again. Still smiling, he tasted the dish. It was clear from his face that he had finally understood the source of this amazing taste, and this made the hero feel very good. Tears of joy appeared in his eyes, not from bitterness, but from overwhelming feelings. Such exquisite food was something incredible for him, an almost fairy tale gift of fate. She realized that she had touched him deeply with her hospitality. The young man listened attentively to her every word, absorbing the information like a sponge, trying not to miss a single moment. Placing her hand on the table, she introduced herself. Her name was Alice, and she was a high elf. The words came out of nowhere. The boy was so delighted with the information the teacher gave him that he couldn't help but smile happily. It was from that moment that the boy became Alice's student, and 5 years had passed since then. During this time, he had learned a lot, and now his life was filled with new knowledge and amazing discoveries. A juicy red apple hung on a tree branch like a precious stone. Suddenly, it was swiftly cut by an invisible hand, and describing an arc in the air, softly landed right on the outstretched palm. It was X, who had already raised the apple to his mouth, about to take a bite, when Alice sternly said that he was behaving in an unacceptable manner. Not wanting to continue the unpleasant conversation, he happily announced that he would be leaving for a short while. Still holding the half-eaten apple in his hand, Alice watched as Axe rose into the air, and an uneasy feeling came over her. She knew his power was growing too fast, too quickly for his age and experience. Watching his flight closely, she realized that she was demonstrating only a small part of her abilities. Behind the external carelessness and youthful enthusiasm, there was hidden enormous potential. She stood motionless, gazing at the horizon where the sky met the earth. Alice wandered thoughtfully down the street, sorting through ingredients and thinking about a new recipe. After a long flight, his tired but strong legs finally touched solid ground. He found himself on top of a huge rock, towering over a deserted wasteland. The place was not chosen by chance. Here, away from prying eyes, one could practice magic without interference. With a determined gleam in his eyes, the young man declared that today, he would begin his journey to becoming a magician who would surpass his mentor. The hero was sure that to do this, he needed to establish a special connection with the void, the source of power. Remembering Alice's lessons, he suddenly realized that she was teaching him not just to become a magician, but to comprehend deeper truths and wisdom. Despite her warnings, there was a strong determination in his heart to live up to her expectations. He thought about his destiny, that he was ready to become a man, ready to make a deal with the void itself to achieve his goal. His determination was unwavering. Suddenly, a horned guide appeared before him, an ancient intermediary between the world of people and the void. The creature looked at the young man attentively and asked what he wanted and what he was willing to pay for his deal. X answered without hesitation that he was ready to give absolutely everything. The guide decided to test his determination and asked him directly if he was ready to give the most valuable thing, his own life. Without a moment's hesitation, the young man answered affirmatively. His face expressed unwavering determination, and his voice sounded firm and confident. The fear of the unknown raged inside him, but he skillfully hid his true feelings. His gaze remained firm and his back straight. The horned guide, having carefully studied the young man, said that he had a suitable proposal. The terms of the deal were unexpected. The guide demanded excess talent as payment. From that moment on, his body as physical development would stop, and it would remain young forever. Despite the seriousness of the consequences, X accepted this condition without hesitation.